Welcome to Snoozy Tour, where every night forgotten worlds breathe again. Here we don't just tell stories. We walk through them, through cities in ruin, through the echoes of war, through the quiet places where survival becomes something sacred. Tonight's journey takes us to Berlin, 1945. A city collapsing under the weight of history. Amid the ashes, two soldiers remain, tired, starving, waiting for a tomorrow that may never come. But beyond the gunfire and the ghosts, they find something no bullet could destroy. The fragile, unyielding instinct to rebuild. This is The Bridge Back to Light. A slow descent into the last days of war, and the first fragile steps toward peace. Pause. Soft piano begins beneath the rain. So settle in. Let the world fade. And drift with us through the smoke, the silence, and the small, stubborn hope that even in the darkest ruins, somewhere, something human still survives. The first thing you notice is the taste of iron. It coats your tongue dry and metallic like you've been chewing on rust. The air is thick, too thick. Every breath feels like dragging smoke through your lungs. Someone coughs in the dark, and the sound bounces off the concrete walls, echoing back with a strange hollowness, as if the bunker itself were coughing with you. The ceiling shivers. Dust drifts down like gray snow. Then silence. The kind of silence that's never really silent, only full of waiting. You can hear boots shifting, a match striking, someone muttering a prayer that doesn't sound like it's meant to reach God. There are 6 of you down here, though it's hard to tell exactly who's still awake. A single lantern flickers near the entrance, throwing shadows across the cracked plaster. You can see Weiss curled up by the stove, his coat pulled over his head like a child hiding from a storm. Beside him, the corporal, name forgotten, rank meaningless, sits sharpening a knife that will never see another clean meal. You pull your knees up, wrap your arms around them, and listen to the war breathing above you. Distant thuds. Short bursts of machine gun fire. Then a long, low rumble that travels through the ground and into your bones. The city is being eaten alive, and you're sitting inside its stomach. Someone mutters, "They're close." Someone else replies, "They've been close for a week." No one laughs. You reach into your pocket and count what's left. 4 bullets, 1 half-broken lighter, and a scrap of paper with an address you can't bear to throw away. It used to mean something: home, family, a place that smelled like bread instead of fear. Now it's just an anchor, a reminder that you once belonged somewhere. The lantern sputters. You strike your lighter, shielding the flame with your hand. The glow reveals your rifle propped against the wall, its barrel scarred from months of soot and rain. You run a thumb along the metal, tracing the line of your own reflection. Blurred, unrecognizable. Another tremor. Stronger this time. A plate rattles off a shelf and shatters. Weiss jerks awake. Was that artillery? You nod. Probably. He rubs his eyes. You think they'll break through tonight? You shrug. If not tonight, then tomorrow. They always do. He doesn't answer. He just stares at the ceiling, where a thin crack has begun to snake across the plaster, and whispers something you can't hear. You think it's a name. Outside, the thunder of tanks grows louder, slow, methodical, like the heartbeat of something vast and merciless. You picture them rolling through the streets, black silhouettes against firelight, treads grinding over cobblestone and corpses alike. You've seen it before. You know the sound of inevitability. The corporal slams his knife into the table. "Enough sitting," he growls. "We hold the gate. That's the order. No one moves. Orders are currency that's lost all value." Still you nod, because nodding feels like the last piece of discipline you have left. You climb the narrow steps to the doorway. The night greets you like a furnace. Smoke, fire, ash. The city's bones are showing, brick, steel, and ruin under a sky the color of dried blood. Somewhere to the east, the horizon flickers orange where the shells are landing. You step outside, boots crunching on broken glass. The air stings your throat. A burned-out car smolders nearby, its metal frame glowing faintly red. The smell of gasoline mixes with the stench of something worse, something human. You pause by the doorway listening. Somewhere above, pigeons are cooing in the rafters. You can't see them, but the sound cuts through the chaos like a memory of peace. You close your eyes and imagine another city, another life. Park benches, Sunday bread, laughter. Then the illusion fades. A shout breaks the quiet. Positions. You shoulder your rifle and move to the shattered window facing the street. Through the haze, you glimpse movement, shadows flitting between buildings, maybe yours, maybe theirs. Hard to tell anymore. You take a breath, steady your hands, and rest the barrel on the sill. The stone is cold beneath your fingers. You think about how strange it is to still feel fear when everything else has gone numb. Weiss crouches beside you. His face looks older in the firelight. You ever think we'll see the morning? He asks. You almost smile. We always do. The question is, who wakes up in it? A shell lands 2 streets over. The shockwave slams into you, rattling the windows, knocking dust into your eyes. You blink hard, wipe your sleeve across your face, and keep aiming. The night stretches on, long and shapeless. Hours blur together. Sometimes you fire. Sometimes you just listen. And sometimes, when the noise dips low enough, you think you can hear the heartbeat of the city slowing, one blast at a time. When dawn finally creeps in, a thin, gray smudge over the ruins, you realize you've survived another night. Barely. The city hasn't fallen yet, but it's close. You look down at your trembling hands, then at Weiss asleep beside you, and whisper to no one, "Still here." Because for now, that's all survival means. The morning doesn't arrive so much as seep in through the cracks. A weak, gray light creeps across the floor like a guilty thing. It reveals more than you want to see: dust, blood, the curled hand of someone who didn't make it through the night. You don't remember his name. You think it started with an H, or maybe an M. You stopped keeping track of names a long time ago. The air smells of metal and rain, though there's no rain anymore, only ash falling like snow. You step outside, blinking hard. The street stretches before you in shades of gray and brown, the colors of exhaustion. The buildings on either side are skeletons, windowless, hollow, leaning toward each other as if conspiring to collapse. Somewhere in the distance, a single church bell rings. The sound is warped, trembling like an old man's breath. You can't tell who's ringing it or why. Habit maybe. Everything in Berlin has become habit now. Breathing, waiting, pretending the world hasn't already ended. You walk down the street with Weiss trailing behind. He's quiet, clutching his rifle too close to his chest. You both keep your eyes on the ground. It's not superstition, it's self-defense. If you don't look at the dead, they can't ask questions. A bicycle lies twisted near a lamppost, its wheel still spinning lazily in the wind. A piano sits half buried in rubble, its ivory keys stripped and blackened, like a mouth missing its teeth. You reach out, touch one of the remaining keys, and it makes a dull, broken sound. Even the music is tired. Weiss stops beside a storefront, the glass long gone. Inside, mannequins lean at awkward angles, dressed in rags that used to be dresses. He stares for a long time, then says, "They look more alive than we do." You don't answer. He's not wrong. Further down, a stray dog limps across the intersection. Its ribs show through the fur. Pauses, looks at you, then trots away. You envy it, for its freedom or maybe for its ignorance. The wind shifts, carrying with it the faint smell of bread. Impossible, you think. Yet there it is, warm, yeasty, human. You follow it instinctively, turning a corner into what used to be a market square. The smell leads you to a collapsed bakery. A hand-painted sign still hangs over the door, soot-stained but legible, "Brat für alle." Bread for all. You step inside. The counters are splintered, the ovens cracked open like tombs. You find a single loaf half buried under dust and plaster. It's hard as stone, green at the edges, but Weiss grabs it like a relic. You both stare at it a moment before he laughs. A small, broken laugh that sounds like a sob trying to disguise itself. "Bread for all," he says. "Guess not." You split it anyway. The mold doesn't matter. You chew in silence, tasting the ghost of flour, the memory of salt. It's almost enough to feel alive again. Almost. A sudden rumble cuts through the moment. Not thunder, engines. Heavy, deep, deliberate. Tanks. You freeze. Weiss does too. The sound grows louder, echoing down the empty boulevard. You move to the window, crouch low, and peek through the frame. The Soviet column appears like a slow tide, armored beasts rolling through smoke, soldiers marching in their wake. The red stars on their hulls are smeared with soot, but unmistakable. They move with the patience of victors. You pull Weiss back, gesture for silence. The two of you press against the wall as the tanks grind past outside. The vibration travels through the floor, through your bones. You close your eyes and imagine the whole city shaking itself apart under their weight. One of the tanks halts. A soldier climbs onto the turret, scanning the street through binoculars. You hold your breath. The seconds stretch thin. Then he gestures, the engine roars again, and the column rolls forward. When the last one disappears around the corner, you exhale. Weiss whispers, "Should we follow?" You shake your head. Follow them where? To the end of the world. He doesn't respond. Neither do you. There's nothing left to say. You step back into the street. The silence after the tanks feels heavier than the noise. The wind has died. Smoke drifts lazily from the buildings, curling into the sky like the city's last prayer. Across the square, a tram lies on its side, windows shattered, wheels half buried in rubble. You remember when they used to run every 5 minutes. Students, mothers, office workers. Everyone packed together, laughing, complaining about delays. You remember the smell of soap and cheap perfume. The small, human chaos of normal life. Now the tram is a coffin. You walk past it without looking inside. The next corner brings you to a fountain. Once beautiful, carved marble figures pouring water into a basin. Now cracked, dry, filled with bricks and helmets. Someone has painted words across its base in white chalk. We're HAL 10. We hold. You stare at the words for a long time. You want to believe them. But even the chalk looks like it's trying to fade away. Weiss sits on the fountain's edge, wiping sweat from his brow. You think anyone's still in command? He asks. You shrug. Maybe. Somewhere. Writing orders no one reads. He chuckles softly. You sound like my father. What did he say? That sometimes men keep talking just to pretend they're still in charge. You don't know whether to laugh or agree, so you do neither. You just sit beside him, both of you watching the sky darken again. Evening comes faster now. The city doesn't fight it anymore. In the fading light, the buildings look like ghosts, gray outlines of what once was. You close your eyes and listen. Not for shells or engines this time, but for something smaller. Pigeons. Always the pigeons. Somehow they're still here. Their cooing drifts through the ruins, soft and familiar, like a lullaby for the dead. You lean back, let your rifle rest across your knees, and whisper to the empty street. We're still here. But even as you say it, you're not sure if you believe it anymore. By morning, the air has gone still, too still. It's the kind of quiet that makes you think the war has ended, until a single gunshot reminds you it hasn't. The echo lingers through the ruins like a rumor that refuses to die. You're sitting by the window of what used to be a cafe, though now it's just a shell. The tables are overturned, the chairs splintered. A mural on the wall reads Coffee und Hoffnung, coffee and hope. Both have long since run out. You unwrap the last strip of ration bread, bite off a corner, and chew until your jaw aches. Weiss sits across from you, staring at the table as if he could will food into existence. His uniform hangs loose, collar stained dark. He hasn't shaved in weeks, but then neither have you. The men around you, what's left of them, speak in fragments. No one mentions victory anymore. No one mentions orders either. The radio went silent 3 days ago. The field phone buzzes sometimes, but it's only static. The war has become a ghost that no longer speaks but still demands obedience. Corporal Gerstner, the one who used to quote Goethe at breakfast, now just mutters numbers under his breath. Casualty estimates, maybe? Or prayers disguised as math. At some point, a runner from division headquarters arrives. He's barely older than 16, face red from the cold, a rifle too big for his frame slung over his shoulder. He carries a crumpled piece of paper stamped with a seal that means nothing anymore. Orders, he says, panting. All units to hold the line along Wilhelmstrasse. Gerstner stares at him. What line? The boy hesitates. The Oi defensive perimeter. Weiss laughs softly, the sound brittle as glass. Perimeter of what? We're standing in the middle of a graveyard. The runner stiffens, jaw set. Command says the Führer is still in the city. We fight until relieved. You want to ask by whom? But don't bother. There's no relief coming. Only the end, dressed in new uniforms. When the boy leaves, Gerstner tears the paper into strips and throws them into the corner. Division's gone, he mutters. 18th Panzer Grenadier, 17th Volkssturm, it's all smoke now. Just names we whisper so we remember who we used to be. You stare at the pieces of paper on the floor. They look like snow. Outside, the sky glows orange again. Fires burn where streets used to be. The air hums faintly with artillery from the outskirts. You try to trace the rhythm of the shells like a heartbeat, steady, inevitable. You find yourself thinking of home. Not of parades or uniforms, but of the smell of your father's coat after rain. The sound of your sister laughing in the kitchen. How far those memories feel now, how alien. You wonder if they'd even recognize you, covered in soot, your hands trembling like an old man's. Weiss interrupts your thoughts. You ever think what it was all for? You glance at him. Don't start. I'm serious. We were supposed to be defending the city, right? Our people. Our homes. But look around. He gestures at the broken windows, the ashes falling through the air. What's left to defend? You don't answer because you don't know. Later, you and Weiss patrol down toward the river. The Spree is unrecognizable, thick with debris, bodies, and the reflection of burning buildings. Bridges are half collapsed, railings twisted. Somewhere across the water, you hear the thud of tank guns. You stop by a fallen street sign, its lettering half melted but still legible. Friedrichstrasse. The same road you once took to meet friends, to buy cigarettes, to live. Now it's a trench made of stone. At the far end of the street, you see movement, figures hauling crates, trying to build another barricade. You squint. They're boys. 15, maybe 16. Volkssturm recruits. Their helmets slide over their ears like toys. One of them waves a pistol at the others, pretending to be in command. Weiss mutters, "Children playing war." You shake your head. No. War playing children. You approach them slowly. The one with the pistol flinches. "Who are you?" he demands. "Same as you," you say. "Tired." He hesitates, then lowers the gun. Up close, you can see the dirt streak down his face, the tremble in his jaw. He can't stop shaking. "We were told to hold this street," he says. "Command said reinforcements were coming." You glance around. There are 5 of them. No heavy weapons. No food. Just bravado and fear. "Reinforcements won't come," you say quietly. He looks at you, eyes wide. "Then what do we do?" You think about lying. You almost do. But the truth slips out anyway. Survive. That's all that's left. He nods slowly. You leave them there because there's nothing else you can give them. As you walk away, Weiss says, "You think any of them will make it?" You shake your head. Maybe one. Maybe none. Depends how quickly they stop believing. Back at the cafe, Gerstner is gone. So is half your unit. No one says where. You sit by the window again, staring at the ruins of the street. The pigeons are still there, pecking at the cobblestones, oblivious to history. You think about the word division. It used to mean hundreds of men, armor, logistics, command. Now it's just the space between what you were told to be and what you've become. You close your eyes, lean your head back against the cold wall, and whisper the truth that everyone else is too afraid to say out loud. There's no division left. Only survivors pretending to be soldiers. And somewhere outside, as if the city itself agrees, another building collapses, loud, final, and strangely merciful. By the 4th day, hunger stops feeling like pain and starts feeling like prayer. It settles into your bones, hollow and steady, an ache you begin to depend on. You wake up hungry, walk hungry, fight hungry, sleep hungry, and when you stop feeling it, that's when you know you're dying. Weiss says he hasn't eaten in 2 days. You correct him. 3. He laughs, a dry rasp that sounds like paper tearing. Then I'm still ahead of the record. You're back in the bunker now, or what's left of it. The air smells of oil, sweat, and smoke. Every surface is damp. Someone's hung an old blanket across the doorway to keep the draft out, but it just traps the stench instead. On the table sits the day's ration, a tin of sauerkraut, half empty, and a crust of bread hard enough to chip a tooth. The corporal divides it with the precision of a miser counting gold. Each man gets a sliver. No one complains anymore. Complaining takes energy, and energy is worth more than truth. When it's your turn, you take the piece of bread, roll it in your palm like dice, then bite once and let the taste linger. It's sour, stale, but real. You chew slowly, closing your eyes. For a moment, you pretend it's something else. Cake, toast, anything that used to mean peace. Weiss finishes his piece in 2 bites. Think there's still food in the city somewhere? You shrug. Maybe in the Reich Chancellery. He smirks. Maybe the Führer's still having breakfast. No one laughs. You remember when eating was ordinary, when hunger was just an inconvenience between lunch and dinner. Now it's a religion. You think of food the way the dying think of heaven. The idea itself keeps you alive. Later you go out scavenging. The streets are quieter today, the kind of quiet that makes you wonder if everyone's already dead. You step over a pile of bricks and into what used to be a grocery store. Shelves collapsed, glass everywhere. A single can rolls across the floor when you enter, hitting your boot with a hollow thunk. You pick it up, beans maybe, though the label's burned away. You shake it. There's something inside. You turn to Weiss. Open it. He pulls his knife, wedges it under the rim, twists. The can gives with a sharp hiss. The smell hits first, sour, rotten. Not food anymore. You dump it out anyway. Mold spills onto the floor like a slow confession. Weiss sighs. Guess God's still rationing. You put the empty can in your bag anyway. Metal's worth something now. Everything is if you're desperate enough. As you search the back rooms, you find an old ration card pinned to the wall. The name is faded, the ink smudged. Someone drew a small heart beside the signature. You run your thumb over it. Human once. You wonder if they lived long enough to cash it in. Outside, the wind picks up. It howls through the shattered windows, carrying dust that tastes like burnt paper. You pull your scarf up and keep walking. Every building looks the same now, bones picked clean. Every corner smells of death and damp. At the end of the block, you find a dead horse. What's left of one anyway? Stripped nearly to the bone. You don't look too long. You've seen what people will do for meat. When you return to the bunker, the corporal's arguing with a sergeant about ammunition. We're down to 12 rounds, the corporal says. Food's gone. Water's next. We can't hold. The sergeant snaps back. We hold until we can't. You think about that as you sit by the stove, staring into the empty grate. Holding. Always holding. What does that even mean when everything worth holding is gone? That night, someone starts a rumor that a supply truck got through on the west side. You know it's a lie, but lies are currency here, worth more than bread. The men talk about it quietly, pretending not to believe but secretly hoping. Weiss leans close. If it's true, you cut him off. It's not. He doesn't argue. Hope is too expensive to waste on facts. Hours pass. The city hums with distant thunder. You hear the echo of tank shells, the occasional scream that ends too suddenly. You've stopped reacting. Survival has become mechanical. Breathe, aim, eat when you can. Think only when forced. At some point, you remember the cafe sign from yesterday. Bread for all. The words replay in your mind, cruel and gentle all at once. Bread for all. You imagine what that would look like now. Every survivor gathered around a single table, sharing something warm, soft, whole. Feels like a fairy tale told by ghosts. You wake sometime after midnight to the sound of someone whispering. Weiss is praying again. You don't catch the words, but you know the tone, pleading, desperate. When he finishes, he presses something into your hand. It's a single sugar cube. Yellowed, cracked. You blink at it. Where did you? Doesn't matter, he says. Half each. You break it, let the grain dissolve on your tongue. The sweetness floods your mouth like sunlight. It's almost too much. You laugh, quiet, bewildered. Weiss laughs too. For a moment, the bunker doesn't smell like war. It smells like childhood. Then the next shell lands and the world shakes again. The sweetness turns to dust between your teeth. You swallow, eyes closed, and whisper the same thing you've whispered every day since the city began to die. Tomorrow, maybe. But even as you say it, you know hunger will still be waiting, patient, holy, eternal. You wake to the sound of music. For a moment, your mind can't place it, soft, distant, impossibly gentle. You think you're dreaming. Then you open your eyes and realize the melody is real, drifting through cracks in the broken ceiling like a ghost that doesn't know it's dead. A gramophone somewhere above. Someone, somewhere, has decided the end of the world needs a soundtrack. The notes are warped, skipping slightly with every rotation of the record, but still recognizable, an old waltz. You used to hear it in cafes, in parks on Sunday afternoons when couples danced near the bandstand. You can almost see them again now. Clean clothes, polished shoes, a world that still believed in grace. Weiss hears it too. He looks up from his cot, eyes wide. Is that music? You whisper. Yeah. No one speaks for a while. Even the corporal stops pacing. For the first time in days, the bunker isn't filled with coughing or gunfire or prayer. Just that fragile, fluttering sound, as though the city itself were remembering what it felt like to be alive. You climb the stairs to the entrance. Smoke rolls past like fog, thick with the smell of burning oil and plaster. The air bites your throat, but the music grows clearer. You follow it across the street, boots crunching over glass. The building it comes from is half collapsed. A former cafe, maybe. The door hangs off its hinges. Inside, sunlight filters through holes in the roof, catching on floating dust. In the center of the room, among overturned tables and broken cups, a gramophone spins on a cracked counter. The record's warped, but it plays on stubbornly. A tinny voice sings about springtime, about love, about everything you no longer believe in. The singer's voice wavers where the vinyl skips, like he's hesitating between verses. You move closer. There's no one else here. Just the gramophone, the music, and the smell of something sweet, coffee grounds maybe, old but still faintly fragrant. You run your fingers over a cup lying on its side, half buried in ash. It's chipped but clean enough to see the reflection of your face, unshaven, eyes hollow. Weiss appears behind you. He stands in the doorway, rifle slung over his shoulder, staring at the spinning record. Who turned it on? You shrug. Maybe it never stopped. He frowns. That's impossible. You smile faintly. So is everything else. He laughs once, softly. Sounds like it hurts him. Then he sits down on a fallen chair, head bowed. You know, he says, I used to hate this song. Why? It was always playing in my father's shop. He'd hum along off-key. I used to wish the record would break. He looks up at you. Guess I got my wish. The record clicks to an end. The needle keeps scraping, a rhythmic hiss that sounds like breathing. You let it play, unwilling to stop it. The silence that follows feels heavier than the music ever did. Weiss rubs his temples. What now? You scan the ruins around you. Same as before. We wait. For what? For the part after waiting. Outside, artillery murmurs like distant thunder. You've grown used to it, the world coughing up its own bones. You step into the street again, look toward the Brandenburg Gate in the distance. It's just a silhouette through the haze, cracked and headless, like an ancient god who's forgotten what it once stood for. You remember parades there, flags, marching bands, cheers. The smell of roasted chestnuts from street vendors. You'd believed in something then. Maybe not politics. Maybe just the illusion that the ground beneath your feet was stable. Weiss joins you, squinting through the smoke. Looks smaller now, he says. Everything does, you reply. The two of you walk in silence, past wrecked cars and burned-out storefronts. The city has turned into a museum of failure. Every street an exhibit, every ruin a display. You find a shop window still intact enough to reflect your figures. Two soldiers, coated in grime, ghosts pretending to be men. Weiss stares at his reflection. Do you ever think we deserve this? You turn to him. Deserve what? This. The ending. Maybe it's payment. You hesitate. For what we did? For what we became? You don't answer. The question gnaws at both of you. As dusk crawls in, you return to the cafe. The gramophone still turns slowly, though the record has stopped spinning. You lower the needle again. The waltz stumbles back to life, fragile and brave. Weiss closes his eyes, letting it wash over him. You sit beside him, back against the wall, rifle across your knees. The fires outside flicker through the broken windows, turning the smoke gold and red. For a few minutes, time folds in on itself. The music could be from 1938, 1918, or yesterday. The city could still be whole. You could still be boys who haven't yet learned what war does to the soul. When the song ends again, Weiss doesn't open his eyes. He whispers, "Play it again." You smile faintly. "I would if I could." The gramophone finally stops. Its silence feels absolute this time, as if even the ghosts have gone quiet. You sit there long after the fires die down, watching the last curl of smoke rise from the needle. Then you whisper, to no one, to the room, to the past, "Thank you." Because for 3 minutes and 42 seconds, the war forgot to exist. The order comes at dawn, or what passes for it. A messenger bursts into the bunker, face gray with soot, uniform hanging off him like it belongs to someone else. "They're in the sewers," he says, breathless. "Soviets. Coming from below." For a moment, no one moves. Then everything happens at once. Men grabbing rifles, strapping on helmets, swearing under their breath. The corporal shouts something about sealing off access points. You're already moving, though you don't remember deciding to. The air outside is cold enough to sting. Smoke crawls along the street like fog searching for something to bury. You follow the messenger toward the river, boots splashing through puddles of ash and oil. When you reach the manhole, it's already open. A rope dangles into the dark. The smell hits first. Rot, waste, gunpowder, something older and wetter than death. Weiss gags beside you. God, it's like breathing through a corpse. You climb down anyway, because orders are orders. Or maybe just because moving feels better than waiting. The light above shrinks until it's gone. Your boots land in knee-high water that sucks at your legs. The tunnel stretches ahead like the throat of some sleeping animal. You raise your lantern. The beam cuts through mist, revealing walls slick with slime, graffiti half washed away, old city markings from before the war. You think about how the sewers connect everything, the streets, the houses, the lives that used to fill them. Now their arteries clogged with mud and ghosts. Behind you, Weiss mutters, feels like we're walking through the city's grave. He's not wrong. You move slowly, rifles raised. The sound of dripping water echoes endlessly. Somewhere in the distance, something metal clangs. You freeze. Listen. Then voices. Faint, low, speaking Russian. The corporal signals. You fan out, crouch low, water lapping against your thighs. You can see them now, silhouettes flickering at the far bend. 3, maybe 4 men, lantern light glinting off helmets. They're moving cautiously too. You wonder if they're as scared as you are. A rat scurries past your foot and Weiss flinches. The noise is enough. Gunfire erupts. The tunnel flashes white, deafening. The sound ricochets off the walls until it's impossible to tell who's shooting at whom. You fire blindly, muzzle bursts lighting up the walls like lightning in a tomb. Someone screams. Someone falls. Then silence again. Just the slow drip of water and the ragged breathing of whoever's left alive. When your ears stop ringing, you edge forward. 2 bodies float face down in the muck. 1 German, 1 Soviet. You can't tell which is which until you see the boots. Even then, you're not sure. Weiss stands behind you, shaking. I can't. You cut him off. Keep moving. You reach the bend. The tunnel widens into a junction chamber, its ceiling lost in shadow. Pipes line the walls like veins. A narrow ladder leads up to a grated hatch. Faint light filters through, daylight or firelight or both. The corporal climbs first, pushes the grate. It doesn't move. He tries again. No luck. Sealed, he grunts. They blocked it. Then we go back, someone says. He shakes his head. No time. We dig. Dig. In a sewer. With what? You look around, spot an old shovel leaning against the wall. Rusted, handle half rotted. You take it, start scraping at the blockage above. Every motion sends dirt and plaster raining down. After a few minutes, light floods in. You look up through the hole. The street above is rubble, but passable. You hoist yourself out, gasping fresh air that tastes like fire and dust but still better than the pit below. Weiss follows, pale and shaking. Never again, he mutters. You almost laugh. You think we get to choose? The rest of the squad climbs out. You scan the street. It's empty except for the bodies of 2 Soviet scouts. They must have tried the same route. One has a grenade clutched in his hand, the pin still in place. You gently pry it loose and pocket it. The corporal wipes his face. Command says they're breaching near the river. We regroup there. Command? You echo. Which one? He hesitates, then says, does it matter? You march on. The street narrows into an alley. The walls here still bear painted signs from another era. Zukunft gehört uns, the future belongs to us. You glance at it and think how cruelly time jokes. Halfway down the alley, you spot a doorway half buried in debris. Above it, a plaque. Zugang zur Kanalisation. Sewer access. Another one. Another way down. Weiss looks at you, horrified. No. You nod. Yes. The corporal gestures. Clear it. We hold here. So you go down again. The second descent feels worse. The smell, the darkness, the memory of the last firefight, it all clings to you like a second skin. But you push forward because holding means surviving, and surviving is all that's left of meaning. Deeper this time. You find a small chamber where the walls have collapsed inward, blocking one tunnel completely. Water drips from above in slow, heavy drops. Each one sounds like a clock ticking down the end of the world. Then you hear it again. Movement. Quick splashing. Not rats. You signal Weiss. He raises his rifle, eyes wide. The sound grows louder, closer, then stops. A voice in German, Nicht schießen. Don't shoot. A figure emerges from the shadows. A boy, barely 15, uniform too big, hands raised. His eyes are wide and terrified. I was with the Volkssturm, he stammers. They're all dead. Please. You lower your rifle. He's shaking so hard his teeth chatter. Weiss gives him a canteen. The boy gulps greedily, water running down his chin. What's your name, you ask? Eric. You alone? He nods. Not anymore, right? You look at him, at Weiss, at the endless black tunnel stretching behind you. The city is dying, the army gone, the war lost. And yet here you are, 3 survivors in a sewer, pretending there's still a world above worth climbing back to. You sigh. Let's go. When you finally reach the ladder, dawn has begun to bleed through the cracks again. You climb up one by one, boots slick with sewage, rifles slung low. The air outside feels new, clean by comparison. You sit on the curb, gulping it in. Weiss sits beside you, head tilted back, eyes closed. Eric collapses next to him, muttering thanks under his breath. The corporal doesn't speak. He just looks at the manhole, then at the burning skyline beyond it and says quietly, "Hell has layers." You nod. And we just climbed through another one. By now, the word command feels like a joke told by ghosts. Every morning someone still pretends to deliver orders, as if paper and stamps could still control the ruin that Berlin has become. But everyone knows the truth. There's no chain of command left, only a chain of voices repeating yesterday's lies. The corporal returns from headquarters, what's left of it, just after dawn. His face is pale, his eyes unfocused. They're saying the Führer's still alive, he mutters. Still in the bunker. Still giving directives. Weiss laughs once, dry and hoarse. Still. Always still. You don't laugh. You just look at the corporal's trembling hands. What are the new orders? He hesitates. Hold the government quarter. Every man. Every building. Until the end. You glance at Weiss. He shakes his head slowly. The end of what? The corporal doesn't answer. He just sits down, staring at the floor like it might offer him something solid to stand on. The bunker smells worse now, gun oil, damp concrete, and the faint sweetness of decay. The wounded man in the corner hasn't moved in hours. No one checks if he's alive. Outside, the city keeps coughing smoke into the sky. The shells land closer each day. Every explosion sounds like punctuation, each one a period in the long sentence of your defeat. You head out anyway, rifle over your shoulder, Weiss following. The streets are emptier than before, as if even the dead have decided to leave. Somewhere to the north, artillery booms, followed by the faint whine of planes. You can't tell whose. It doesn't matter anymore. At a crossroads, you find a man still in uniform but missing an arm. He's directing traffic. What traffic, you can't tell. A single cart piled with furniture passes him, drawn by a horse that looks near collapse. The man salutes it. His eyes are glassy. Orders, he murmurs as you pass. Orders from above. Weiss watches him fade into the smoke. Above where? You keep walking. Near the old post office, you find what used to be a command center. The sign outside still reads Oberkommando der Wehrmacht, but the windows are blown out, and the entrance is half buried. Inside, a radio crackles. The sound makes your heart leap. A voice, thin, mechanical, broken by static. Hold, to the last, reinforce. Chancellery, loyalty. Then silence. You stare at the machine, waiting for the next words. None come. You twist the dial, static hisses, then nothing. The corporal slams his fist against it until the casing cracks. They're gone, he whispers. Even the airwaves are dead. The men around you stare at one another as if someone might volunteer to be in charge. No one does. Command has collapsed, and in its place is a strange kind of freedom, terrifying, empty, almost sacred. You walk out into the courtyard. Rain begins to fall, thin, dirty drops that sting when they hit your skin. You tilt your face up anyway, letting the cold wash some of the filth away. For the first time in weeks, you can smell wet earth beneath the smoke. It almost feels human again. Weiss joins you. What now? You shrug. Whatever we decide. That's worse, he says. At least orders made pretending easier. He's right. Freedom means choice, and choice means guilt. You spend the rest of the day trying to fortify what's left of the street barricade. It's laughable, piles of bricks, overturned cars, sandbags leaking dust. Weiss finds a flagpole tangled in wire, the flag itself shredded beyond recognition. He looks at it a long moment, then tosses it into the fire. No point, he says. Even symbols can't hold anymore. As night falls, the corporals try to form a new perimeter. They draw lines on a map that no longer exists, assign positions to units that no longer live. The words reinforce and secure sound strange now, like phrases from an extinct language. You sit apart, cleaning your rifle by habit. Not because you believe it will save you, but because the motion feels like prayer. Weiss hums under his breath, the waltz from the gramophone, half-remembered, off-key. It's comforting in a cruel way. Suddenly, a young runner bursts in. His helmet's gone, his coat torn. The Russians, he gasps. They've broken through the Tiergarten line. Tanks, they're everywhere. The corporal slams his fist on the table. Then we fall back. To where? The runner cries. No one answers. You grab your rifle and follow the others outside. The air glows orange from burning fuel depots. The sound of artillery rolls across the river like thunder. You can see the silhouettes of IS-2 tanks moving in the distance, their turrets sweeping like the eyes of predators. A sergeant you've never met shouts over the noise. Hold your positions. No retreat. You almost laugh. No retreat. There's nowhere left to retreat to accept the grave. Weiss crouches beside you behind a wall of sandbags. His face is streaked with soot. Still following orders? You look at him. Whose? He doesn't answer. He just looks toward the burning horizon. If this is the end, I want to see it with my eyes open. The first shell lands nearby. The blast throws you both into the dirt. Dust fills your mouth, your ears. You can't hear anything but a high-pitched whine. The world has become vibration and heat. When your hearing returns, the sergeant is gone. So is half the barricade. You crawl to Weiss, pull him to his feet. We're moving, you shout. He nods weakly. You run through the ruins, ducking under falling beams, over craters filled with water. Every explosion lights the streets like lightning. The city's dying faster now, falling apart not just from bombs, but from the collapse of belief itself. You find a doorway and drop inside, gasping for breath. Weiss slumps beside you, coughing. Still think anyone's in charge? He asks. You look around, the cracked walls, the broken furniture, the flickering shadows. Yeah, you say quietly. Death. Outside, the rumble of tanks grows louder. Command has collapsed. What's left now is instinct, and the stubborn refusal to die quietly. By the time the shelling stops, the city feels like it's holding its breath. No gunfire, no shouting, no movement, just the low hum of smoke twisting through broken glass. You and Weiss sit in the doorway of a ruined bookshop, trying to convince yourselves that silence means safety. It never does. The corporal sends you both to scout the northern street, the one that used to lead toward the church. We need eyes up high, he says. Find a tower, spot their armor. You nod. Orders still have shape, even when the world doesn't. The church is easy to find. The spire leans awkwardly, one bell visible through the fractured roof. The courtyard outside is a minefield of craters and corpses. Statues of saints lie toppled in the mud, faces shattered beyond recognition. You step around them carefully as though they might still be listening. Inside, the air is thick with dust and incense. The pews are splintered, hymnals soaked through. The altar remains, though the crucifix above it hangs sideways, half torn from the beam. Candles, real candles, burn on the steps, placed there by someone still stubborn enough to believe in ritual. Weiss stares at them. Who lights candles in hell? You answer without thinking. Someone trying to remember heaven. The stairwell to the tower spirals upward, narrow and uneven. Each step creaks under your boots. The higher you go, the colder it gets. You pass through pockets of light where the walls have been blown open, revealing the skeletal remains of neighboring buildings. Halfway up, you find a body slumped against the wall. A soldier, young, maybe 17. His rifle rests across his lap. His eyes are open, staring through you. Weiss leans down, closes them gently. He made it halfway to heaven, he mutters. At the top, you push through a trapdoor and emerge into the tower. The floor is littered with brass casings, shell fragments, and a small nest of rags where someone's been sleeping. A rifle leans against the window ledge, its barrel still warm. You freeze. Someone's here. A voice from the shadows, "Don't move." You turn slowly. A figure steps into the light. A woman dressed in a tattered civilian coat, her hair tied back, a rifle aimed steady at your chest. Her eyes are sharp, exhausted but not afraid. "Lower it," you say softly. She doesn't. "You're not Red Army." "No." "Then you're the enemy." You glance at Weiss, who raises his hands slightly. "We're just looking for a vantage point." "This is mine." The standoff hangs in the air like smoke. For a moment, you think she might shoot. Then, slowly, she lowers the barrel. "There's nothing left to see anyway," she says. You approach the window, careful not to startle her. Through the shattered glass, you can see the city stretching out like a dying animal, streets glowing red, smoke coiling toward a bruised sky. Far to the east, the silhouettes of tanks crawl forward, deliberate, unstoppable. "How long have you been here?" you ask. 3 days, she replies. "I shoot when I see movement. Doesn't matter whose uniform it is anymore." You study her face. Dirt streaks her cheek, but there's something clear in her gaze, a strange calm that borders on madness. "Why stay?" She shrugs. "Because someone has to watch." You sit beside her. The wind whistles through the cracks in the stone. She passes you a canteen. The water tastes of metal, but you drink anyway. For a while, no one speaks. You watch a building collapse 2 blocks away, slow and silent like a tree falling in a forest. The woman hums under her breath, a lullaby, soft and broken. Weiss breaks the silence. "You could leave, you know. At West. Try for the Americans." She smiles faintly. "And tell them what? That I watched my city die and didn't blink?" You can't argue with that. Then it happens, a flicker of movement below. A Soviet scout crawling through the debris toward the church. The woman sees him first. She raises her rifle, exhales, and fires. The shot cracks through the still air. The scout drops instantly. Weiss flinches. "God." She lowers the rifle. "He was young," she says flatly. "They're all young." You look at her, then at the smoke rising from the barrel. The smell of gunpowder mixes with incense, creating something strangely holy. Another movement, 2 more soldiers running across the square. You raise your rifle this time, instinct taking over. The scope finds one of them, center chest. You hesitate. The man stumbles, shouting something you can't hear. He could be your age. Could be you. Your finger tightens. Then stops. You lower the weapon. Weiss looks at you, confused. "Why didn't you shoot?" You can't find the words. The woman glances at you. "You'll die if you hesitate." "Maybe," you say quietly. "Or maybe that's the last human thing left to do." She studies you, then turns back to the window. "Humanity won't save you here." "I'm not trying to be saved." Outside, the sky darkens again. The bell above you sways gently in the wind, though no one rings it. Its hollow sound drifts across the ruins, soft and mournful. You think of all the prayers that used to rise from this tower, the weddings, the funerals, the ordinary Sundays. All of it gone, burned into silence. When you finally climb down, the woman doesn't follow. She stays in the tower, rifle ready, eyes fixed on the horizon. Weiss looks back once. She's not going to survive. You nod. None of us are. As you step into the street, the first shell of the evening lands near the church. The spire shudders. Dust explodes outward. The bell rings once, clear, defiant, then stops forever. You don't turn around. You find the medic 2 blocks south of the river, sitting in the doorway of what used to be a bakery. The front sign still hangs, half-melted letters spelling Brat und Leben. Bread and life. Feels like a joke now. He's an older man, coat torn, sleeves stained dark. His medical armband is gray with grime. He's smoking a cigarette down to the filter, hands trembling but steady enough to light another. Beside him, a crate of bandages and morphine vials sits like an altar. When he sees you and Weiss approach, he squints. "You hurt?" "Not yet," you say. "Then you're lucky. Sit anyway." You do. The pavement's cold through your coat. Weiss drops beside you, stretching his legs. The medic studies both of you, 2 tired ghosts pretending to be soldiers. "You've been fighting near the gate?" You nod. He exhales smoke through his nose. "Then you've seen hell." "I think we've been living in it," Weiss mutters. The medic chuckles softly. "No, hell is organized. This is just forgetting." He reaches into his coat pocket and pulls something small. A sugar cube wrapped in paper so thin it looks like skin. He unwraps it with care like it's a relic. "Found it in a ration crate last week. Been saving it for someone still breathing." He holds it out. You stare at it. The thing glows faintly in the dirty light, absurdly pure, absurdly human. "You should keep it," you say. He shakes his head. "I don't need it. My teeth are gone." Weiss laughs, a real sound, cracked and sharp. You take the cube, break it in half, and hand one piece to him. He hesitates, then pops it into his mouth. His eyes close. For a second he looks like a child again. You let your own piece dissolve slowly. The sweetness hits like a memory. You can almost see your mother's kitchen. A radio playing. The sound of laughter from the street below. Warmth that didn't come from fire. The medic watches you both with something close to pity. You boys think it'll end soon? Weiss opens his eyes. It already has. We're just walking through the leftovers. The medic nods. That's the truest thing I've heard in months. He leans back against the wall, eyes half shut. They used to call me Dr. Stein. Now I'm just the man with needles. He gestures toward the ruins around you. This street, it was a line once. The wounded came through here every hour. Men missing legs, eyes, half their faces. I used to believe in saving them. Now I just make sure they die quiet. You don't know what to say, so you don't. The wind picks up, swirling ash down the alley. Somewhere nearby, a window frame collapses with a sharp crack. Weiss flinches. The medic doesn't move. After a while he says, "There's a Red Cross post east of here." Or there was. If you want a chance at surviving, head there when the shelling stops. Tell them Stein sent you. You glance at Weiss. He nods slowly. "Why don't you come?" you ask. Stein smiles faintly. "Because someone has to stay for the ones who can't walk. And I'm too tired to pretend I can start over." He flicks away the cigarette. The ember lands in a puddle and hisses out. "Besides," he adds, "a city doesn't need doctors anymore. Just grave diggers." He opens his coat again, pulls out a small flask, takes a sip, and passes it to Weiss. The liquid burns down your throat when it's your turn. Vodka, maybe, or something stronger. Feels like a heartbeat waking up inside you. For a moment, the three of you sit there in silence. Not comrades, not soldiers, just people orbiting the same dying star. Then a distant boom rolls through the street. Another artillery shell. You all look up automatically. The medic sighs. Time to go underground again. He stands, joints cracking, and gathers his bag. "Go east," he says again. "Follow the river until you see the tram lines. Don't stop for the flags. They don't mean anything anymore." He starts down the street, limping slightly. You call after him. "Stein." He glances back. "Why give the sugar to us?" He smiles, faint and tired. "Because sweetness means you're still alive enough to taste it." Then he's gone, swallowed by the smoke. You and Weiss sit for a long time, neither speaking. The air smells faintly of burnt sugar and gunpowder. You close your eyes and try to memorize it, not because it's pleasant, but because it's proof that even at the edge of ruin, there are still things worth remembering. When you finally stand, Weiss looks at you. "You think he'll make it?" You shake your head. "No, but maybe his stories will." You start walking east, past the bakery, past the shelves of shops that once sold music and clocks and children's shoes. The sugar still lingers on your tongue, a ghost of sweetness against the taste of ash. You step carefully over the rubble into a street that no longer belongs to anyone, and whisper to no one in particular. "Here's to the last doctor of Berlin." By the time you reach the river, Berlin no longer feels like a city. It's a wound, raw, burning, stitched together with smoke and silence. The Spree glows faintly in the distance, reflecting fire like a mirror too proud to break. Weiss limps beside you, breathing hard, his coat torn and caked with soot. Neither of you has spoken since the medic. There's nothing left to say. When you finally see the water, you stop. It isn't blue. It isn't even water anymore. It's black and orange, an oily current thick with debris. Furniture, paper, maybe bodies. The current moves sluggishly, as if the river itself is exhausted from carrying the dead. Weiss stares at it, whispering, "It used to be beautiful." You nod. So did everything. Across the bank, Soviet shells land in rhythmic bursts, steady, unrelenting. A factory burns on the far side, sending sparks into the night. They drift down like red snow, hissing when they touch the water. You crouch behind the ruins of a bridge, rifle at your knees, and watch the reflection of the flames ripple across the surface. Somewhere above the noise, you can still hear the pigeons. You can't see them, but they're there, circling through smoke, lost, calling for a city that no longer answers. Weiss pulls a canteen from his pack and shakes it. "Empty. You think we could drink from that?" he asks, nodding at the river. You look at the black water. "If you want to die faster." He chuckles weakly. "At least it'd be warm." The ground shakes again, closer this time. You look up. Soviet armor rolling down the far street, turrets turning methodically. The sound of treads grinding brick echoes like thunder. They're not in a hurry. Why would they be? The city's already theirs. You duck lower. The heat from the burning factory reaches you in waves. The air tastes metallic like blood on a coin. Weiss whispers, "Do we run?" "Where?" "Anywhere but here." You shake your head. "Everywhere's here." He doesn't argue. He just sits staring into the flames. His face glows in the orange light, and for a moment he looks carved from the same ash that coats the city. Then, from the other side of the bridge, movement, figures stumbling down the embankment. Civilians. For maybe 5. A woman carrying a child. A man dragging a cart. Another woman clutching something tight to her chest. Maybe a photograph. Weiss stands instinctively. We have to help them. Help them do what, you ask? Burn slower? He looks at you like he doesn't recognize you. Maybe he doesn't. You don't recognize yourself either. The group reaches the edge of the bridge. It's half-collapsed, twisted iron and stone hanging over the river like broken ribs. The woman with the child tries to climb across first. The plank beneath her gives way with a snap. She falls halfway, screaming, catching herself on the railing. The man drops the cart and grabs her arm. The baby wails. Without thinking, you run. The world blurs into motion. Boots slamming against the cracked pavement, smoke clawing your throat, Weiss shouting something behind you. You reach the bridge, skid to your knees, grab the woman's other arm. Her eyes are wide and gray with dust. You pull with everything left in you. She comes up, sobbing, clutching the child. The man falls backward, laughing and crying all at once. For a second, the 4 of you just breathe. Then a shell lands near the riverbank. The blast throws you onto your side. Ears ringing. Dust everywhere. The man's gone. The cart's gone. The bridge groans above you. You hear Weiss yelling your name through the haze. You push yourself up. The woman's alive, barely. Blood runs from a cut on her temple, streaking down the baby's blanket. You grab her shoulder. Go. Now. She nods, dazed, and stumbles toward the far end of the bridge. Weiss meets her halfway, helping her climb over the rubble. You follow, every muscle screaming. Another explosion rocks the air. A section of the bridge gives way completely, falling into the river below with a sound like a collapsing cathedral. You leap, barely catching the opposite ledge. Weiss hauls you up by the collar. You collapse beside him, coughing, lungs full of smoke. Behind you, the bridge burns. The river glows brighter, an inferno stretching across the water. Flames lick upward, painting the night in gold and black. The woman is gone, disappeared into the ruins. You hope she made it. You know she didn't. Weiss sits beside you, silent. His hands shake. You look at them, raw, blistered, trembling, and realize they're still holding yours. You don't pull away. After a long while, he says, "You could have let her fall." You nod. "I almost did. But you didn't." "No," you whisper. "Not this time." The sky begins to lighten barely. Smoke filters the dawn into strange colors. Violet, amber, gray. The spree burns itself out slowly, hissing until the flames become steam. The city exhales. Weiss leans back against the wall. "If there's a God," he murmurs, "he's gone deaf." You look at the river, its surface now dull and still. Maybe he just stopped listening. A gust of wind carries the smell of scorched metal and something sweet, bread maybe, from the bakery still smoldering behind you. For a second it smells almost like morning. You close your eyes, and in that fragile silence, you realize what you've been fighting for. Not victory. Not country. Just the stubborn, fragile spark that refuses to die. One small act of mercy in a city made entirely of cruelty. The river crackles once more, then falls quiet. You stand, wipe the soot from your face, and say softly, "Let's keep moving." Weiss nods. Where to? Where there's still light. And together, you walk along the edge of the river of fire, 2 silhouettes swallowed by smoke, heading east, toward something that might still be alive. You find them by accident. It's midday, or what passes for it now, and the sun filters through the haze like a dying lantern. You and Weiss have been following the tram lines east, staying low between the rubble, when you hear it. A faint clatter, then laughter. Real laughter. Human. You freeze. Weiss grips your arm. "Did you hear that?" You nod. "Yeah. But it can't be." The sound comes again, high-pitched, echoing through a half-collapsed apartment block. You move closer, rifles ready, every instinct screaming trap. But what you find isn't soldiers. It's children. 5 of them, maybe 6. Thin, dirty, faces streaked with ash and soot. They're gathered around a small lantern in a cellar half buried under bricks. One boy is rolling marbles made of shattered glass across the floor. A little girl hums to herself while holding a wooden doll missing an arm. When they see you, they freeze. Eyes wide. None of them run. They've already learned there's nowhere to run to. The oldest, maybe 12, steps forward. He's holding a kitchen knife that looks too heavy for his wrist. "We don't have food," he says quickly, his German clipped, practiced. "If you're looters, there's nothing left." You lower your rifle immediately. "We're not looters." Weiss adds softly, "We're soldiers." The boy studies you, squinting like he's trying to remember what that word used to mean. "German?" You nod. He exhales, shoulders sagging. "Then you can't help us." You exchange a glance with Weiss before ducking into the cellar. The air is damp, thick with mildew and coal dust. The children back away but don't hide. There's a pot on the ground, blackened from soot, and beside it, half a loaf of bread so old it's turned to stone. "How long have you been down here?" Weiss asks. The boy shrugs. "Since the roof fell." "And your parents?" He points upward toward the collapsed ceiling. They're still there. The smallest girl, maybe 5, starts crying softly. Another child hushes her. Weiss looks away. You crouch beside the pot. There's a thin film of water at the bottom. You take your canteen. It's nearly empty, but you pour half of what's left inside. "Boil it," you say. The boy frowns. "Boil what?" "Hope," Weiss mutters. You find some bricks and help prop the pot over a few scraps of wood. Weiss lights a match. The tiny flame flickers to life, weak but real. The children stare as if they've never seen one before. The boy lowers the knife. "You're not here to take anything?" You shake your head. "No, just passing through." One of the older girls, hair matted with dust, says, "Everyone says the Russians are coming." "They are," Weiss answers quietly. "What will they do?" You hesitate. "They'll end it." She looks at you, confused. "End what?" You don't answer. The boy sits down across from you. "Do you think we'll go to school again? When it's over?" You almost laugh, but it dies in your throat. "Yeah," you say. "Maybe. Someone has to rebuild." He nods slowly, staring at the fire. "My father said the same thing. Before the last raid." You sit in silence for a while, the only sound the soft popping of the fire. Weiss tears a corner from the petrified loaf and hands it to the youngest girl. She takes it in both hands, reverent, as if it's holy. When she bites it, the crust crumbles like chalk, but she smiles anyway. Outside, a distant explosion shakes dust from the ceiling. The children barely flinch. They're used to it. The boy looks up. "That one was close." Weiss nods. "They all are." You glance toward the doorway. "We should keep moving." Weiss hesitates. "We can't just leave them." "What do you want to do? Take them to the front lines?" He glares. "We can't leave them here to starve." The boy stands. "We'll be fine." "No, you won't," Weiss says gently. You look at their faces, hollow, sharp, defiant. Children pretending to be survivors in a city pretending to be alive. You think of your sister again, her handwriting, the way she used to draw stars in the margins of her school books. You sigh. "There's a Red Cross station by the river. If it's still there, they'll help you." The boy's eyes narrow. "And if it's not?" "Then keep moving until you find someone who looks less lost than you." He nods once, solemn. "Thank you." You and Weiss climb back up through the rubble. At the top, the city greets you with the same grim quiet. Smoke curls from nearby buildings. Somewhere, a dog barks once and stops. Weiss lingers at the opening, looking down at the children. They won't make it. You adjust your rifle. Maybe not. But at least now they believe they can. He exhales slowly. You think that's enough? In war, you say, belief is the last ration. You start walking again. Behind you, faint laughter drifts up from the cellar, the sound of the children playing with their glass marbles. It's soft, bright, impossibly fragile. For a moment, it almost sounds like peace. You stop and look back once. A single marble rolls into the sunlight, glinting red from the flames reflected in its surface. Then it vanishes into shadow. You turn away. The war doesn't wait for miracles. The road to Wilhelmstrasse is no longer a road, it's a graveyard made of bricks and memories. Every few meters, you step over the ruins of things that once defined life. A bicycle wheel, a scorched photo album, a melted typewriter. The street signs still hang, twisted and blackened, pointing nowhere. You walk in silence. Weiss lags behind, limping slightly, his breath visible in the cold air. He's thinner than before, his face drawn tight against the wind. Neither of you has eaten since the bakery. But hunger feels distant now, a dull echo inside the body rather than a need. You reach a corner where a bronze statue once stood. Only the pedestal remains, chipped and scorched. On its side, someone has scrawled, "Wir leben noch." We're still alive. Weiss runs a hand over the letters. You think they were? You shrug. For a little while. The sound of distant artillery rolls across the city again. You can't tell if it's German or Soviet anymore. The war has lost its accents. As you move down Wilhelmstrasse, the air changes, thicker, heavier. You know this part of the city. Once it was the heart of everything. Ministries, embassies, parades. Now it's just smoke and ghosts. You stop in front of a building whose roof has caved in. The sign above the entrance still reads Reichsministerium. The front steps are buried in glass. Inside, papers cover the floor like snow. Orders, memos, signatures that no longer mean anything. Weiss picks one up, squints at it. Orders to hold the line. Dated a week ago. You snort softly. They were still giving orders while the city was already ash. You wander deeper into the building. The air smells of damp stone and ink. The hallways echo with your footsteps. Somewhere inside, a door creaks open, then shuts. You freeze. We're not alone, Weiss whispers. You raise your rifle and move toward the sound. Down a narrow corridor, you find them, a group of soldiers huddled around a lantern. 3 of them. Yeah, terrified. One wears an officer's cap far too big for him. They spin around when they see you, rifles half raised. Don't shoot, you call. We're German. The officer lowers his weapon slightly. Who sent you? No one. We're just trying to get through. He hesitates, then nods. You won't get far. They're everywhere. You glance around. The walls are cracked, the floor covered with broken glass. In one corner, a body lies covered with a jacket. The smell tells you he's been dead for days. Who's that? Weiss asks quietly. The officer doesn't look up. Our lieutenant. Took a bullet 2 nights ago. We didn't have time to bury him. You nod. What are you waiting for? Orders, he says flatly. The word hangs there, absurd and heavy. You almost laugh, but it sticks in your throat. There aren't any. He looks at you, something breaking in his eyes. Then what do we do? You don't have an answer. No one does. Weiss steps forward. You leave. You find water, shelter, anything that's not here. The youngest soldier shakes his head. If we leave, they'll call us deserters. Weiss gestures at the dead man in the corner. And if you stay, you'll join him. The officer looks down at his hands. He said Berlin would hold. You sigh. Berlin already fell. It just doesn't know it yet. For a long moment, no one moves. Then the officer stands, slings his rifle over his shoulder, and says quietly, "We'll go south. Maybe we'll find someone still fighting." You don't stop him. Hope, even misplaced, is better than paralysis. They pack their things, what little they have, and disappear into the street. When their footsteps fade, the silence feels heavier than before. Weiss turns to you. Do you ever wonder if we're ghosts too? You blink. What do you mean? He gestures to the ruins, the corpses, the hollow buildings. Everyone we meet looks half dead. We talk, we walk, we breathe, but nothing changes. Maybe we died weeks ago, and this is what's left. You don't answer. You just look down the corridor where the shadows shift and sway with the candlelight. For a moment, you almost believe him. A gust of wind blows through the shattered window, scattering papers into the air. They flutter around you like white birds, aimless and blind. One lands at your feet. You pick it up. It's a typed letterhead, the seal still visible at the top. It reads, "To all remaining units, hold until relieved." You crumple it in your hand. We've been holding so long we forgot what for. Outside, night is falling again. The air hums with distant gunfire. You step into the street. The city stretches out before you, silent, endless, and broken. Weiss stands beside you, face turned toward the dim glow on the horizon. What do you think waits for us at the end of this? You exhale. Nothing. Maybe peace. Maybe nothing. He nods. Nothing sounds better than this. The wind carries faint voices, shouting in Russian, somewhere far but getting closer. You both listen for a while, not moving. Then you say softly, "Come on. Let's keep walking before the ghosts catch up." You head north again, past the ruins of ministries and monuments, past shattered statues that once watched over parades. The city hums beneath your feet, alive in its dying. And somewhere behind you, the papers keep falling, whispering in the wind like the last breaths of a government that no longer exists. The morning begins with thunder that isn't thunder. You wake to the sound of it rolling across the ruins, long, deep, and too precise to be weather. The Soviets are shelling again somewhere close. The city answers with silence. No counterfire. No orders. Just the dull, hollow echo of defeat. Weiss is already awake, sitting against the wall of a shattered tram station. His eyes are red-rimmed, his hands wrapped around his knees like he's trying to keep himself from unraveling. You nod to him. Neither of you speaks. There's nothing left worth saying at dawn. The sky above is the color of pewter, streaked with smoke. It makes you think of the church tower again, the sniper, the candles, the bell. You can still hear its single note in your memory, the one clear sound before it fell quiet forever. When you step into the street, the ground trembles. Somewhere in the distance, masonry collapses. You can't tell if it's the wind or artillery anymore. Everything falls the same way here. As you pass through a courtyard filled with burnt-out cars, you see it, the church again. What's left of it. The spire leans even farther than before, cracked through its base like a snapped bone. Smoke seeps from its windows. The stone glows faintly red in the morning light. Weiss slows beside you. "It's still standing," he murmurs. "For now," you reply. You both walk closer. The front doors are gone, blown inward. Inside, the air smells like burnt wax and rain. The pews have collapsed into a single blackened heap. You step over them carefully, boots crunching glass and bone. At the far end of the nave, the altar is still there, miraculously untouched. A single candle burns on it, small but stubborn. You can't help but wonder who lit it. Weiss approaches it slowly. You think she's still up there? You know who he means, the sniper woman. You shake your head. If she was, she's gone now. Then you hear it, a creak, faint but unmistakable. The sound of something heavy shifting above. You look up just in time to see a crack spreading through the base of the tower. "Move," you shout. The ceiling groans. Then the bell, massive, blackened, half-melted, breaks loose from its mount and plunges downward. It hits the floor with a sound that splits the world apart. Dust explodes through the nave. The walls shudder. You dive behind a pillar as debris rains down. The noise is unbearable, stone grinding, glass shattering with splintering. The bell rolls once, then comes to rest against the altar, still humming faintly with the memory of its last toll. When the dust settles, the church is gone. What remains is a skeleton, a hollow ribcage of stone open to the gray sky. Weiss coughs beside you, covered in ash. "She's definitely gone now," he says, voice shaking. You nod, unable to speak. The sound still rings in your skull. The bell lies before you, cracked clean down the center. You reach out and touch it. It's still warm. The metal hums faintly beneath your fingers as if it's breathing. You imagine it remembers every note it ever made, weddings, funerals, Christmas mornings, and now this final, broken song. Weiss sits beside you. "Funny," he says. You think when something breaks, the sound stops. But it doesn't. It keeps echoing inside you. You look at him. He's staring at the bell like it's alive. His eyes are distant, glassy. "You all right?" you ask. He nods, then whispers, "I used to serve here. Before the war. My mother brought me every Sunday." You blink. "This church?" He smiles weakly. "Yeah. I used to ring that bell when I was a boy. It was heavy even then." You don't know what to say. For a long time, neither of you moves. The light slants through the ruined roof, dust motes floating like tiny ghosts. Finally, Weiss stands. "Let's go." You hesitate. "You sure?" He looks back at the altar one last time. "If I stay here, I'll start believing again. And I can't afford that." You follow him out. The street beyond is eerily quiet. The air feels thicker now, the silence heavier. You can hear the faint rattle of machine guns far away, east, maybe near the river again. The Soviets are closing in. As you turn the corner, you glance back once. The bell glints faintly through the dust, split clean in two. It looks like an open mouth, frozen mid-prayer. You murmur, rest, under your breath, not sure if it's for the bell, the woman, or the city itself. Weiss doesn't hear you. He's already walking ahead, boots crunching over broken glass. You hurry to catch up. The day drags forward, gray and endless. But the echo of that falling bell follows you. Each step a reminder that even stone can't stand forever. And yet, somehow you're still standing. You spot it just before dusk, as the light fades into that strange, bruised color between day and night, the kind of twilight Berlin wears like a second skin. Amid the endless gray and black of ruin, one thing stands out. A door painted red. Not bright anymore, but red enough to remember it once meant life. The house is 3 stories tall, mostly intact except for the roof. Its windows are shattered, curtains hanging in long, torn strips. The front steps are covered in ash, but the color beneath still shows through. Tiles once white, now gray with memory. Weiss notices it too. Someone still living there? You shrug. Only one way to find out. You approach carefully, rifle ready. The air smells of rain and smoke. The street is quiet except for the faint rustle of paper caught in the wind. You tap on the door, lightly as if afraid to wake it. No answer. You push it open. The hinges groan like an old man remembering pain. Inside, the air is thick and warm. Someone's been burning wood, real wood, not debris. You freeze, scanning the room. Then you see them. An old woman sits in a chair by the fireplace, wrapped in a heavy shawl. She doesn't flinch when you enter. Her hair is white, tied back neatly, her face calm in a way that feels impossible here. On the table beside her sits a teapot, a cracked cup, and a loaf of bread so fresh you can still smell the crust. She looks at you and Weiss as if she's been expecting you. "Close the door," she says softly. "You're letting the warmth out." You obey without thinking. The sound of the latch sliding shut feels final, almost sacred. Weiss hesitates. "We didn't mean to intrude." She waves a hand. "Intrusion stopped being possible years ago. Sit." You do. The chair creaks beneath your weight. The fire pops quietly, throwing golden light across her face. It feels wrong to see warmth, wrong to hear the quiet hiss of wood burning in a world made of smoke. She pours tea into 2 cups, her hands steady despite their age. "You're soldiers," she says simply. You nod. "We were. From here?" "No." "Then why are you still here?" You don't have an answer. Weiss does. "Because we forgot how to leave." The old woman nods as if that makes perfect sense. "Most people do. I used to teach music in this house. Children mostly. Scales, hymns, little songs about spring. When the bombing started, I sent them home early. I told them we'd continue next week." She pauses. "That was 4 years ago." She reaches for the teapot, refills her cup, and looks at you. "Do you know what I did when the first shell hit this street?" You shake your head. "I shut the windows," she says, smiling faintly, as if that could keep the war out. The room goes quiet. You sip the tea. It's weak, barely flavored, but it's hot. It feels like forgiveness. Weiss leans forward. "You've stayed here this whole time?" She nods. "Where would I go? The house remembers me, and I remember it. That's enough." Her voice is calm, not proud, not bitter. Just steady. You look around the room. There are photographs on the wall, faded images of children holding violins, a man in a suit, a summer garden full of flowers. Everything frozen in a world that stopped moving. You find yourself saying, "It's beautiful here." She smiles. "It was. But beauty doesn't leave, it hides. You just have to look harder." Outside, the sound of artillery resumes. Distant but closer than it should be. The walls tremble slightly, dust falling from the rafters. The old woman doesn't move. She just watches the flames. Weiss stands abruptly. "You should leave, ma'am. The front's moving this way." She looks up at him with a kind of soft pity. "Oh, child. There's nowhere left to go. This is the last room in Berlin where the fire still behaves." He doesn't argue. Neither do you. For a long time, the 3 of you sit together in silence, listening to the steady crackle of the fire and the slow, measured ticking of a clock that somehow still works. Each second sounds deliberate, as if time itself is choosing to continue out of respect. When you finally stand to leave, she doesn't stop you. She just says, "Take something warm with you." She breaks the loaf of bread into 2 pieces, hands them over. It's not much, but it's human. You take it carefully. The crust flakes under your fingers. Thank you. Don't thank me, she says. Just remember me when you taste it. Remember there were still people here who stayed gentle. You nod. You want to say something, anything, but words feel too fragile for the room she's built out of defiance and firelight. As you step back into the cold, Weiss turns once more. Will you be all right? She smiles. I'm surrounded by ghosts, dear. I'll never be alone. You close the red door behind you. The paint flakes off onto your glove. The sound of the latch clicks softly, like the end of a lullaby. Outside, the world is gray again. The warmth disappears instantly, swallowed by the wind. You take a bite of the bread. It's coarse, stale, but for a moment you can still taste kindness. Weiss chews in silence beside you. Then he says quietly, You think she'll survive? You shake your head. She already has. You walk on through the falling ash, the scent of wood smoke still clinging to your clothes. Behind you, somewhere in that quiet house, a clock keeps ticking. Each second, a heartbeat for a city trying to remember how to live. You hear the squeak before you see him, a faint, rhythmic sound cutting through the muffled hush of ruin. For a second, you think it's another hallucination. Then he appears through the haze, a man on a bicycle pedaling slowly down the center of a street no one should still be crossing. His tires crunch over glass and gravel. The frame wobbles under the weight of a sack strapped to the back. His clothes are a patchwork of uniforms, Soviet boots, a German jacket, a civilian scarf wrapped tight around his neck. The bicycle chain clicks with every turn, a metronome for the end of the world. Weiss stares, half smiling. You've got to be kidding me. You shake your head. Berlin's full of ghosts. Why not one on 2 wheels? The man spots you and slows, putting a foot down to steady himself. He doesn't reach for a weapon, just looks at you with tired, sunken eyes that still somehow carry a spark. You're alive, he says simply, as if it's a rare compliment. His voice is rough, foreign accented. Czech, maybe Polish. So are you, you reply. He grins faintly. Barely, but the bicycle helps. He gestures to his sack. You're hungry? Weiss glances at you. Depends what you're offering. The man swings off the bike and unties the bag. Inside are loaves of bread, blackened but intact, and several tins of something unmarked. He holds one up proudly. Horse meat. Not fresh, but honest. You raise an eyebrow. You're trading food in a city that's dead? He shrugs. Dead cities are good for business. No one argues over price. He tosses you a tin. You catch it, surprised by the weight. Why risk it, you ask? He looks around, gesturing to the ruins. Because everyone else is hiding, waiting to die. I'd rather move. Moving feels like living. There's a kind of mad wisdom in his tone. Weiss takes the bread gratefully, tears off a piece, and hands half to you. You eat without thinking. It's dry, heavy, but real. The man leans his bike against a lamppost that hasn't stood straight in years. Used to deliver letters, he says. Before all this, I knew every street, every shortcut. Now I deliver food. Or news. Whatever's worth more that day. What kind of news? Weiss asks. The kind no one believes, he answers, smiling crookedly. They say the Führer's dead. They say the Soviets have crossed every bridge. They say the Americans won't come. You nod slowly. Which one's true? He laughs softly. All of them, probably. Or none. Truth doesn't survive shellfire. The wind picks up, fluttering the man's scarf. You notice the left side of his face, scarred, the skin tight and pale. Shrapnel, maybe. His eyes catch yours. You heading east? You nod. Red Cross Station if it's still there. He adjusts the strap on his sack. It's there. I passed it yesterday. Crowded, but safe enough for breathing. Weiss frowns. And you didn't stay? The man shakes his head. Too many people waiting for miracles. I prefer motion. He picks up his bike, preparing to leave. You call after him. What's your name? He pauses. Emil, he says. Once, anyway. You nod. Good luck, Emil. He smirks. Luck's a currency I don't trade. But thank you. He pushes off, pedaling slowly down the street again. The bicycle chain sings its quiet, mechanical tune, steady and absurd in the emptiness. You and Weiss watch him go. His figure grows smaller, swallowed by the gray distance. until all that's left is the faint squeak of the wheels fading into silence. Weiss shakes his head. A man riding through hell to sell bread. You take another bite, swallow hard. Someone has to keep the world turning. A shell explodes somewhere far off. Neither of you flinch anymore. You start walking again, following the tram line toward the east. Weiss carries the rest of the loaf under his arm. Every few minutes you catch yourself listening for the creak of that bicycle chain, the proof that someone is still moving forward. After a while, Weiss says quietly, "Do you think he'll survive?" You glance at the horizon. If anyone will, it's the man who refuses to stop. The street bends toward the river again, the sky dimming to a deep, bruised blue. You see reflections of fire on puddles, the city's own constellations. You keep walking until the sound of wheels fades completely and the silence of Berlin returns, thick, unbroken, almost gentle. And in that silence you whisper to yourself, "Keep moving." Because motion, even now, is its own kind of faith. You hear it long before you see it, a thin, trembling sound carried through the smoke, like a voice whispering from another lifetime. At first you think it's just the wind playing tricks. But Weiss stops too, his head tilted. You hear that. You nod slowly. A faint hum. A melody, maybe. Then words. You follow the sound down a narrow side street, past the charred remains of a bakery and a car burned down to its skeleton. The voice grows louder, crackling, uneven but unmistakably human. It's coming from a cellar. You pry open the half-collapsed door, the smell of rust and damp air flooding out. Inside, a single lantern flickers. And there, on a table covered in dust and wires, sits an old shortwave radio. A man kneels beside it, his hands trembling over the dials. His face is gaunt, his beard long and gray. He looks up at you, startled, then smiles faintly. "Don't worry," he says, his voice hoarse. "You're not the first ghosts I've seen." Weiss raises a hand. "We're not ghosts." The man shrugs. "No one's alive enough to prove it." You glance at the radio. Who's speaking? He leans close, adjusts the dial until the static clears just enough to let words slip through. "Berlin, fallen, surrender signed, units to lay down arms." The rest dissolves into white noise. You stare at the device like it might shatter from disbelief. Weiss whispers, "Surrender?" The man nods slowly. "It's over. Officially. Though no one's told the bullets yet." The words don't land all at once. They fall slowly like ash. "It's over." You repeat it quietly as if testing the taste of it. Feels foreign on your tongue. The man sits back, rubbing his eyes. Been listening all night. First the Russians, then the British frequencies. Even the Americans. All saying the same thing. Weiss sinks to the floor, staring into space. "So we lost." The man chuckles softly. "We all did." You crouch beside the table, the radio's warm hum filling the room like a heartbeat. "How long have you had this?" He pats it fondly. "Since before the first raid. My wife used to play opera through it. She said if you filled a room with music, the war couldn't fit inside." He looks around the empty cellar. Guess she was half right. Outside, the artillery has quieted, replaced by the distant crack of rifles. Sporadic, confused. You realize what it means. Fighting still happening, but without purpose. Soldiers still firing because stopping feels impossible. You turn the volume down slightly. The static crackles like distant rain. Weiss looks at you. "What do we do now?" You don't answer. The man smiles faintly. You keep breathing. That's all there is left to do. He opens a tin can with a rusted knife, the smell of beans filling the air. He offers it out. "It might be your first meal of peace." You take it, sharing quietly with Weiss. It's cold, but it tastes like something sacred. For a while, the three of you just sit there, men from different worlds united by a signal in the static. The man fiddles with the dial again, searching for more. For a moment, there's nothing but silence. Then, music. A symphony. Scratchy, distant, but unmistakable. Beethoven. You can't help but laugh softly. They're playing Beethoven on the day Berlin dies. The man nods. Seems fitting. He knew how to end things with style. The melody swells, tinny but beautiful. Weiss leans back against the wall, closing his eyes. "I used to hear this at my mother's house," he says. "She'd hum it while baking." The man smiles. "Maybe she's humming it now. You don't believe in heaven anymore, but for a moment you wish you did." When the song ends, the static returns. The man adjusts the knobs one last time, then turns the power off. The silence that follows feels heavier than any explosion. Weiss looks at you. So it's over. You nod slowly. Yeah. He gives a half laugh, half sob. Doesn't feel like it. You stand stretching your legs. Wars never end when they say they do. They just stop being loud. The man smiles faintly. That's a good line. You should write it down. You look at the ruined city outside the cellar door. No paper left. The man nods. Then remember it. You help Weiss to his feet. He looks at the radio one more time. Keep it safe, he says to the old man. I will, the man replies. It's the only voice left that tells the truth. You step outside. The air feels different, not cleaner, not warmer, just quieter. Like the city has finally decided to stop breathing. The sky above is pale and hollow. Smoke curls lazily over the rooftops, rising into a silence that feels endless. Weiss looks around dazed. So this is peace. You exhale, slow and unsteady. Yeah, this is peace. A gust of wind passes through the ruins, carrying the faint echo of Beethoven's last notes. And for the first time, you don't duck or run or reach for your rifle. You just listen. The next morning, the streets are quiet, too quiet. Not the silence of fear or waiting, but the kind that comes after something enormous has finally broken. The war has ended, though no one seems to know how to act like it. You and Weiss walk along Unter den Linden, what's left of it. The grand boulevard of emperors and parades has become a corridor of ghosts. The trees stand scorched and leafless, the cobblestones cracked and littered with helmets, rifles, and burnt flags. A breeze passes through, stirring paper and ash across the ground. For a moment it looks like snowfall. Weiss stops beside a toppled statue, a horse and rider half buried under rubble. The rider's bronze face is gone, melted clean away. They used to march here, he says quietly. Bands, uniforms, crowds cheering. You nod. Now the only parade is the dead going nowhere. Ahead, a group of soldiers stands in the street, weapons lowered, hands raised. Red Army troops surround them, their faces unreadable. One Soviet soldier gestures toward a truck, shouting in Russian. The Germans obey, slow and tired. There's no fight left in them. You and Weiss hang back, watching from the shadows of a ruined doorway. They're rounding them up, Weiss murmurs. You nod. Surrender's official now. He exhales shakily. Should we go too? You shake your head. Not yet. The Soviets load the prisoners into the truck. Men who once called themselves conquerors now staring at their boots like schoolboys caught cheating. The truck rumbles away, leaving behind only silence and boot prints. You step out into the open. The air feels strange, lighter but heavier at the same time. You realize you're walking across a street that once carried parades celebrating victory. Now it's empty, the echo of drums replaced by the clatter of loose metal in the wind. At the intersection ahead, a single band drum lies overturned. You pick it up, brush off the soot. The skin is torn, but when you tap it, it still makes a dull sound. Weiss chuckles softly. Play something heroic. You grin faintly. We ran out of heroes weeks ago. He smirks. Then play something true. You hit the drum once lightly. The sound rolls through the ruins like a heartbeat. Once more. Again. A slow rhythm, steady and hollow, echoing between the buildings. Weiss joins in, whistling tunelessly, the sound dry and cracked. For a moment, you both look ridiculous. Two filthy soldiers playing ghost music for a city that can't hear. But the absurdity feels good. Human. A woman appears at a window above, eyes sunken, hair gray with ash. She listens for a moment, then disappears. Somewhere farther down the street, a child's voice answers with a faint, off-key hum. The music grows, not real music, not beautiful, but alive. The rhythm of people realizing they've survived something they can't name. When you stop, the silence rushes back in like the tide. Weiss wipes his face with a dirty sleeve. Maybe the city needed that. You nod. Maybe we did. You walk on past the Brandenburg Gate. It still stands somehow, though its pillars are riddled with bullet holes. The quadriga atop, Victory riding her chariot, has lost her head. Weiss stares up at it. She looks better that way. How so? Less arrogant. You both laugh softly. Feels wrong but also right. Past the gate, you find a courtyard where dozens of soldiers have thrown down their weapons. A young Soviet officer directs them into neat lines, clipboard in hand. He looks no older than 20. His face is blank, exhausted. He spots you and Weiss gestures sharply. Storie. Hands up. You freeze. Weiss raises his hands, eyes wide. You do the same. The officer approaches cautiously, rifle slung over his shoulder. His uniform is immaculate, his boots spotless. He studies you both. German soldiers? You nod slowly. Formerly. He glances at Weiss's bandaged arm, your dirt-streaked face, the rifle slung over your back. He exhales through his nose. War finished. You know this. Yes, you answer. He stares at you a long time, then says quietly, then go home. Weiss lets out a disbelieving laugh. Home? The officer shrugs. If you can find it. He waves you off, already turning back to his clipboard. You and Weiss stand there stunned. For the first time in months, no one is telling you what to do. No one is trying to kill you. The freedom feels heavier than any weapon you've ever carried. You lower your hands slowly. Home, you repeat under your breath. The word feels small, fragile, almost fictional. Weiss looks at you. You still remember where that is? You think of a village, a mother's handwriting, a field untouched by bombs. Maybe, you whisper. But it's far. The officer's voice fades behind you as you start walking again, past the gate, down the empty boulevard where once the Empire marched. Now only the wind walks with you. And as it passes through the broken buildings, it almost sounds like applause. For no one in particular. For nothing at all. For the simple, impossible fact that you're still moving. You don't plan to go back to the river. Your feet just take you there. The streets twist and narrow, the air thick with the smell of soot and rain, and before long you hear it again, the slow, labored breathing of water against stone. The spree looks different now. The fires are gone mostly. The river's surface is flat, gray, almost calm. But beneath, the current still carries fragments of what's been lost. Bits of wood, a soldier's cap, the corner of a flag. Everything drifts east toward the horizon that swallowed the city whole. Weiss stands beside you at the embankment, staring into the water. He's thinner than ever, his eyes hollow but strangely bright. You know what's funny? He says. After all that noise, I thought peace would sound different. You nod. It does. It sounds like silence you can't fill. A row of Soviet engineers works a few hundred meters upriver, building a makeshift bridge. Their voices echo faintly, foreign syllables rising and falling like birdsong. None of them look at you. You're just another shadow moving through a city full of them. Weiss sits on a chunk of broken stone and pulls something from his pocket. It's the sugar cube wrapper, from the medic. He unfolds it carefully, smoothing the creases with his thumb. The paper's faded, nearly transparent. He looks at it the way someone might look at a photograph of a person long gone. I've been carrying this, he says quietly. Didn't even realize why. You crouch beside him. You think he made it? Weiss shrugs. Maybe. Maybe he didn't. But if he died, at least he died believing sweetness still existed. He folds the paper again, slips it back into his pocket. The wind catches a strand of his hair, white with dust, and carries it across the river. You both sit there for a long time watching the current. The water laps gently at the stones as if trying to erase the last traces of fire. Then you see something. Floating near the bank. A bundle, small, wrapped in cloth. You think it's debris until it catches on a branch and rolls just enough for you to see the shape of a face. A child. You move instinctively, boots splashing into the shallows. Weiss grabs your arm. Don't. You pull free. Help me. Together you drag it out. A small boy, maybe 7, wrapped in a blanket. His eyes are closed. His hair is clotted with mud. But his face looks almost peaceful. You set him gently on the stones. Weiss stands over him, breathing hard. One of the cellar kids? You don't answer. You don't want to know. You kneel, staring at the boy's hands, small and curled, as if still gripping something invisible. He shouldn't have been here, you whisper. Weiss's voice cracks. None of you should. You stay like that for a long time, the river murmuring beside you. The engineers upstream keep working, their voices drifting through the air like the echoes of another world. Finally, Weiss kneels too. He pulls the last scrap of bread from his coat, the one from the woman with the red door, and places it beside the boy's body. She said it was human, he murmurs. Let's leave him something human. You nod. The gesture feels like a prayer. When you stand, you both step back in silence. The current catches the edge of the blanket, pulling gently as if the river itself is asking to take him. You give a small nod and the water obeys. The bundle drifts away, slow and solemn, until it disappears beneath the next bridge. Weiss wipes his face roughly, but his voice stays calm. He's going east too. You swallow hard. Maybe that's where the light is. For a while, neither of you moves. The sky darkens, rain beginning to fall, soft at first, then steadier. It smells clean, almost new. You tilt your head back, letting it wash over your face. Weiss does the same. Feels like the city's crying. Or baptizing itself, you say quietly. The rain blurs everything, streets, river, memory. You can't tell where one ends and the other begins. When the downpour eases, Weiss stands. We should go. Before night. Where? He hesitates. Anywhere there's no echoes. You nod. Then east still. As you turn away from the river, you glance back one last time. The surface glimmers faintly in the fading light, ripples catching the color of a fire long gone. It's not beautiful, but it's honest. You whisper to the water, take him home. Then you and Weiss walk on, two shadows against a river that refuses to stop moving, even when everything else has. You leave the river behind, walking through streets that used to have names but now only have scars. The signs are gone. The buildings are half skeletons. Each corner feels like a question you're too tired to answer. Weiss walks a few paces ahead, limping slightly. You can tell he's hurting again. His leg never healed right, but he doesn't complain. Neither of you do anymore. Words feel too fragile for this new kind of silence. It's late afternoon when you reach the neighborhood. You recognize it not from memory but from absence. The bakery on the corner is gone. The tram lines are bent like ribs. Only the air feels familiar, thick with dust and ghosts. Then you see her. A woman in a window. Second floor of what used to be an apartment block. She's sitting on the ledge, her body framed by crumbling plaster and shadow. A candle burns beside her. She looks alive. That's enough to make you stop. Weiss notices, follows your gaze. You think she's? You shake your head. I don't know. You cross the street carefully, boots crunching on broken glass. When you reach the door, it's hanging off its hinges. The hallway inside smells like damp wood and something sweet. Maybe rot, maybe perfume. You climb the stairs slowly, one hand on the wall for balance. When you reach the landing, the candlelight spills across the floor. She's there. Middle-aged. Thin. Wrapped in a gray shawl that might once have been blue. Her hair is streaked with soot. Her eyes, pale, sharp, impossibly steady, meet yours without surprise. You're late, she says. Her voice is calm, cracked at the edges like porcelain. You blink. Late? She gestures to the small table beside her. 2 cups. One filled, one empty. For tea. You hesitate, then step forward. I didn't know I was invited. She smiles faintly. No one ever does. Weiss lingers in the doorway, unsure whether to come in. The woman nods toward him. There's enough water for both. He steps inside. You all sit in silence. The tea tastes like smoke and rain. But it's hot, and that alone feels miraculous. After a while, she says, You were soldiers. You nod. We were. She studies your faces. And now? You shrug. Still alive. That's all I can say for sure. She nods. That's more than most. The candle flickers as the wind seeps through the broken glass. You look around. The room is mostly empty, just a bed frame, a cracked mirror, and a stack of books tied together with string. You notice one open on the table. Poetry. Rilke. The pages are water-stained, but one line is underlined in red pencil. Let everything happen to you. Beauty and terror. Just keep going. No feeling is final. You read it aloud. She smiles. My husband used to quote that. He said it sounded like permission to live. You ask softly, where is he? Her gaze doesn't move. Somewhere under the east wall, I think. He was with the fire brigade when the ceiling collapsed. You don't say sorry. Sorry has no place here. She doesn't expect it anyway. After a moment, Weiss clears his throat. Why stay? She looks at him, and for a second she almost laughs. Leave? To where? The war may be over, but it's still everywhere. Here, at least, I know the shape of the ruins. Her voice trembles just once, then steadies. Besides, Someone should keep a light on. For the ones who might still come back. You look at the candle. The flame bends gently, stubborn against the draft. How long have you been lighting it? Every night since the first bombs, she says. Habit maybe. Or faith. Or both. You sit quietly, listening to the soft hiss of the wick. Outside, a single bird calls. The sound feels foreign, almost holy. Weiss finishes his tea and sets the cup down. We're heading east, he says. We heard there are camps taking people in. For work. Food. She nods slowly. Then you should go before the light fades. You stand. Thank you for this. She smiles faintly. You'll repay me by surviving. Weiss hesitates at the door. You'll be all right? I've been all right for longer than most. You nod once. Step into the hallway. As you descend the stairs, you glance back one last time. She's already turned toward the window again, her silhouette framed by the candle's glow. Outside, the city is drowning in dusk. The candle flickers in the distance, the single point of gold in a world made of gray. Weiss says softly, she's crazy. You shake your head. No, she's what's left. He doesn't answer. You walk on. And though the wind howls down the street and the smoke thickens again, you find yourself glancing back more than once. Just to make sure that tiny light is still there. It is. For now. The road begins where Berlin ends, a smear of mud and gravel beyond the last standing wall. You and Weiss walk in silence, your breath forming ghosts in the cold morning air. The city fades behind you, swallowed by mist and memory. Ahead, open country. Flattened fields, burned farmhouses, telephone poles snapped like matchsticks. It doesn't feel like escape. It feels like exile. You pass others along the way. A column of refugees, mostly women, children, a few old men dragging carts piled with scraps of what used to be their lives. No one speaks much. Words are too heavy to carry. A small boy stares at you as you pass. He clutches a wooden toy missing one wheel. Weiss offers him half a biscuit. The boy takes it without a word, his mother nodding once in silent thanks. The road turns to mud after a while. You keep walking. The sound of your boots squelching becomes a kind of heartbeat. At midday you stop by a ditch. Weiss sits down hard, rubbing his knees. Feels like we've been walking since 1939. You smile faintly. Maybe we have. He chuckles, then coughs, deep, wet, tired. You hand him your canteen. He takes a sip, grimaces. Still tastes like rust. Rust means it's real, you say. Then reality's overrated. You both laugh quietly. The sound feels wrong out here, like music in a graveyard. But it's laughter all the same. As you rest, you notice movement on the horizon. A line of trucks, Soviet markings, moving slow through the haze. You tense, instinctively reaching for a rifle that isn't there. Weiss watches them too. You think they'll stop us? You shake your head. If they wanted to, they already would have. The convoy passes without incident. You watch the dust trail fade. Then you rise. Come on. The afternoon stretches thin and gray. You walk past fields that once grew wheat but now only sprout metal. Twisted helmets, shell casings, the bones of machines. At one point you find a farmhouse still standing. The roof's half gone, but the door holds. You and Weiss step inside. There's a table. 2 chairs. A pot on the stove long gone cold. On the wall, a photograph, a family of 4. All smiling. Weiss stares at it for a long time. You think they made it? You shrug. They made it somewhere. He picks up the photo, wipes the dust from the glass, and sets it carefully back in place. Then he sits, resting his hands on the table as though waiting for supper that will never come. You find a few dry potatoes in a drawer. Shriveled, soft, but edible. You split them and eat in silence. When the light fades, you lie down on the floorboards. The air smells of smoke and damp straw. Somewhere outside, an owl calls, a sound so clean it hurts. Weiss mutters, half asleep, "Do you ever think about before?" "All the time." "And after?" You pause. "Not yet." He nods, already drifting. Maybe that's for the best. You stay awake longer, staring at the ceiling beams, the gaps where stars peer through. For the first time, you allow yourself to imagine something beyond this endless road, not victory or punishment, just quiet. A house, a field, bread baking somewhere. You fall asleep thinking of bread. Thought. You wake to the sound of rain on the roof, soft, steady, cleansing. Weiss is already up, patching his coat with thread he scavenged from somewhere. His movements are slow but deliberate, almost peaceful. He notices you watching. If we keep east, maybe we'll hit the odor. They say there's a checkpoint. Maybe camps. Food. You nod. Then east it is. You shoulder what little you have left and step into the rain. It's cold but gentle, washing the dirt from your hands, the grime from your face. You tilt your head up and drink from the sky. Weiss laughs quietly. Tastes better than the canteen. You grin. Don't get used to it. The road winds through forest now, trees blackened at the base but alive. New leaves sprout timidly from the branches. You reach out and touch one. It's soft, damp, impossibly green. Weiss sees you and smiles. Proof of life. Maybe even forgiveness, you say. You keep walking. The mud softens into grass. The clouds thin, letting pale sunlight spill across the landscape. For a moment, it almost looks like peace. You reach a ridge and stop. Below, a river glimmers faintly, wide, slow, silver under the sky. The odor. Weiss exhales sharply. We made it. You nod. To what, though? He doesn't answer. Down by the riverbank, figures move, soldiers, civilians, Red Cross workers. A checkpoint just like he said. Flags flutter in the wind, Soviet, Polish, and one you can't quite identify. You stand there staring down at the crossing. Beyond it, the east stretches into haze and hills. Weiss turns to you. You think they'll take us in? You look at him, then at the water. Only one way to find out. And together you start down the hill. Each step feels lighter than the last. Not because the journey's over, but because, for the first time, it might lead somewhere. The river looks deceptively calm from the ridge, but up close it's wide and heavy, swollen with spring melt and ash runoff from the city. The bridge that once spanned it is gone, bombed out, just twisted girders and half-sunken beams. In its place, the Soviets have thrown up a makeshift crossing. Planks lashed to pontoons, ropes sagging under the weight of men and carts. You and Weiss stop at the edge of the queue. Dozens wait ahead, civilians mostly, a few in tattered uniforms like yours, all hollow-eyed, clutching sacks, pushing barrows. A Red Cross flag flaps lazily above a canvas tent on the far bank. Weiss exhales. Looks organized. You shake your head. That's what scares me. Rain drizzles. The ground squelches under boots and hooves. Somewhere, a baby cries. Somewhere else, a man laughs, too loud, too brittle. A Soviet guard motions you forward. He's young, barely 20, his helmet too big for his head. He points at your coat, then at a pile of weapons being thrown into the mud. You lift your empty hands. No rifle. He studies you, then nods and waves you through. Halfway across the bridge, the planks creak. The river below moves with sluggish menace. You glance down. The water carries branches, broken furniture, the occasional helmet bobbing like a memory that refuses to sink. Weiss mutters, "If this collapses, I'm swimming east without you." You manage a smile. That'd be the first time you went anywhere fast. He snorts but doesn't laugh. The wind cuts through your coats. You keep moving. On the far bank, a Soviet officer in a leather coat waits with a clipboard. His expression is tired, methodical. One by one, he asks each person their name, birthplace, occupation, and reason for crossing. When your turn comes, his eyes flick to your torn uniform. Soldier? Was, you say. He nods. Unit? Gone. He grunts, writes something down. Destination? Anywhere with food. That earns the faintest twitch of amusement. He waves you toward another tent. Medical inspection. Then registration. Work or transit, depends on your condition. Inside, the tent smells of disinfectant and damp wool. A woman in a Red Cross armband sits behind a table. Her German is clean, formal. Name? You tell her. She writes it carefully, then gestures for you to roll up your sleeve. You do. She notes the scars, the dirt embedded in your skin, the weight loss. No infection? Just exhaustion. She nods. That's the common disease now. Weiss goes next. He jokes with her, something about having survived worse food than she could possibly give him. She actually smiles. For a heartbeat, it feels like the world is tilting back toward something human. You're both given small ration cards stamped in red ink. 2 triangles. Weiss squints. What's it mean? She answers, temporary clearance. It means you're still being counted. Still being counted. The phrase lodges in your mind like a splinter. Outside, the rain has stopped. Smoke rises from a line of cook fires along the embankment. You follow the smell, turnip stew thin but real. A soldier ladles 2 portions into tin bowls and hands them over without a word. You and Weiss sit on a log near the water, steam curling into the cold air. You eat slowly, savoring each spoonful. It tastes like mud and salt and mercy. Weiss stares at the far side of the river. Berlin's silhouette still stains the horizon, black against gray. You think they'll rebuild it? You swallow. Cities always get rebuilt. People, not so easily. He nods, quiet again. You finish your stew, wipe the bowl clean with a crust of bread and close your eyes. The sun breaks weakly through the clouds. Its light spills across the water, turning it silver for the first time in months. For a moment, you imagine that light reaching all the way back, into basements, across ruins, over the faces of the ones who didn't cross. You imagine it finding the woman with the candle, still sitting by her window, flame steady against the wind. A voice interrupts your thoughts. The Soviet officer stands nearby, clipboard under his arm. You too, he says in rough German. You can go to the eastern camp or you can volunteer for labor detail here. Bridge repair. Food guaranteed. Weiss looks at you. You nod. We'll work. The officer marks something down. Good. Report at dawn. When he leaves, Weiss sighs. Back to shovels then. At least we're shoveling for the living this time. He grins tiredly. That's an improvement. Night falls slowly over the river. Lanterns flicker along the bank, reflections trembling in the current. Somewhere downstream, someone plays a harmonica, soft, mournful, almost tender. You lie back on the damp grass, hands behind your head, watching clouds drift past the sliver of moon. For the first time in years, you don't dream of gunfire. You just listen, to the water, to the wind, to the sound of a bridge being rebuilt plank by plank in the dark. Morning begins with hammer strikes. Wood on metal. Metal on stone. The rhythm is clumsy at first, too many men, not enough strength, but soon it finds a pulse. You join the line at dawn, boots sinking into the wet earth near the riverbank. The Soviets have organized a crew of 20, mostly former soldiers, German, Polish, even a few French POWs who never made it home. Everyone works, no questions asked. Weiss stands beside you, gripping a shovel. I used to think labor camps were hell, he mutters. Turns out, hell at least feeds you. You smirk. Depends on the shift. The foreman, a squat man with a scar down his cheek, barks orders in Russian. You don't understand every word, but you understand enough. Carry. Don't stop. You start with the debris, broken beams, bent rebar, chunks of concrete that once belonged to the bridge. The river swallows half of what you drop, reclaiming its spoils without ceremony. Every so often, a body floats by. No one mentions it. By midday, your palms are raw. The blisters have split open. Weiss's cough is worse, but he keeps working, his jaw locked, refusing to slow. You hand him your canteen. He takes one gulp, grimaces, hands it back. Still tastes like war. You nod. Everything does. The sun pushes through the clouds for a few hours, lighting the water until it glows like spilled mercury. You pause once, leaning on your shovel, watching the wave moves. The current looks stronger now, cleaner. Weiss notices your stare. You thinking about jumping? Thinking about swimming? You say. That's different. He grins weakly. Just make sure to take me with you if you find anywhere worth going. By evening, the first section of the bridge starts to take shape. Wooden beams laid side by side, nailed into position. The Soviets shout less now, they're tired too. Everyone's hands shake the same way when they lift the hammer. When the shift ends, you're given a bowl of soup and half a potato. You eat sitting by the river. The water reflects the orange glow of campfires on the opposite bank. You can see shadows moving, other crews, other survivors all doing the same work. Rebuilding what's been broken, even if it's only temporary. Weiss stares into his soup. You ever think this is all we'll do now? Fix what we destroyed. You tilt your head. Maybe that's fair. He chuckles dryly. Justice through exhaustion. You finish eating, toss the empty bowl aside, and watch as the smoke from the fires drifts east. The air smells of pine and diesel. Not pleasant but familiar. It's the scent of survival. Later, you walk down to the water's edge. The river murmurs like a voice too tired to form words. You crouch, wash your hands, watch the dirt bleed off into ripples. The cuts sting, but the pain feels clean, honest. You notice something caught in the reeds, a scrap of cloth, blue and frayed. You pull it free. It's part of a flag. The corner, maybe. You can't tell which nation it once belonged to. The color's been swallowed by mud and time. You rinse it, then fold it carefully and tuck it into your pocket. Behind you, Weiss calls out, "You keeping souvenirs now?" You shake your head. Reminders. Of what? That we build better than we destroy. He doesn't answer, but his silence agrees. That night, you share a tent with 10 others. The floor is cold dirt, the walls patched canvas. You can hear snores, coughing, whispers in languages you don't understand. Outside, rain begins again, a soft, steady percussion on the roof. Weiss lies beside you, curled into his blanket. You think this bridge will hold? You close your eyes. It has to. People need to believe in crossings again. He exhales slowly. Yeah, crossings. You drift towards sleep, listening to the rain and the faint groan of the half-built bridge shifting under its own weight. Somewhere in your mind, you imagine another bridge, a different kind, stretching not over water but over memory. From what you were to what you might still become. From ruin to reason. From Berlin to something like forgiveness. When dawn comes, the river is mist-shrouded. You rise stiff and sore but alive. The foreman points to a pile of lumber and grunts an order. You nod, pick up a beam, and feel its weight settle into your shoulders. Weiss helps lift the other end. You both carry it to the riverbank, step by careful step, your boots sinking deep in the mud. The bridge waits. Half finished, half hopeful. You set the beam down, wipe sweat from your eyes, and look up. Sunlight breaks through the fog, turning every drop of mist to gold. Weiss breathes out a laugh. Almost looks holy. You nod. Maybe it is. You raise the hammer again. And the work continues, slow, heavy, necessary. By the end of the week, the bridge holds. Not perfectly, it groans when wagons cross and sags near the center, but it holds. For the Soviets, that's enough. They mark it complete, log the work, and begin sending supplies east. For you and Weiss, it means relocation. A guard with a clipboard calls your names at dawn. New camp, he says in halting German. Reconstruction team. You go. You exchange a look. Neither of you asks where. You've learned that destinations don't mean much anymore. The truck arrives an hour later, engine coughing through the morning fog. You climb in with a dozen others. The road east is rutted and quiet. Fields spreading on both sides, still blackened from the fires, yet already dotted with shoots of green. Spring is pushing back, stubborn as ever. Weiss leans against the canvas wall, eyes half closed. You think they'll ever call it peace? You shrug. Maybe when they stop counting bodies. The truck rattles over a bridge, the one you built. You feel it tremble beneath the tires, the wooden planks complaining but holding. Weiss taps your arm and grins. Our bridge. You nod. Proof we were here. Hours later, the truck stops at a clearing. A cluster of tents and wooden shacks sprawls across the field, surrounded by barbed wire that looks more symbolic than secure. A sign painted in red reads Arbeitslager 017, Labor Camp E17. But this one feels different. There are gardens being dug. A school tent. A canteen that smells faintly of broth instead of rot. You see civilians and soldiers working side by side, no shouting, no guards with raised rifles. A Soviet officer meets you at the gate. He's older, thin, with gray hair and a kind of quiet authority that doesn't need volume. You're builders? He asks. You nod. Good, he says. Then build. He gestures to a map pinned to a post. A sketch of houses, roads, a mill by the river. A new settlement. You blink. A village? He nods. For the displaced. Everyone needs a place to sleep before they can start again. The idea sounds almost impossible. But so did surviving. Your days fall into rhythm. Mornings filled with hammering, afternoons with hauling timber, evenings with soup that actually tastes of something. Weiss finds a job repairing roofs with a Polish carpenter named Marek, who swears constantly but sings while he works. You're assigned to foundations, digging, mixing mortar, laying the first stones of what will one day be homes. Your hands ache, your back throbs, but you don't mind. Pain feels productive here. At night, the camp glows with lanterns. Smoke drifts up from cook fires. People talk in low voices, not about the past, but about things like planting, roofing, baking. Future words. One evening, you sit by the half-built well, watching the stars emerge. Weiss joins you holding 2 pieces of bread. Traded my jacket patch for these? You take one. It's coarse but warm. Luxury. He smiles. Luxury is eating it sitting down. You eat in silence, listening to the faint laughter from the cook tent. Somewhere someone plays a fiddle, badly but with heart. Weiss says softly, "You think this will last?" You stare at the half-finished houses silhouetted against the firelight. Maybe it doesn't have to. Maybe just trying is enough. He nods, chewing slowly. That's a better answer than we used to have. Days blur. The camp changes. Tents become walls. Walls become rooms. Children begin to play between piles of lumber. Their laughter sounds strange at first, like a noise the earth forgot it could make. One afternoon, while unloading planks, a young girl runs up to you. She can't be more than 6. She hands you a dandelion, half crushed but bright yellow, and says something in Polish you don't understand. Then she runs off again. Weiss watches from the scaffold, smiling. You're popular. You tuck the flower behind your ear. First gift in months. He laughs, then coughs, hand over his mouth. When he lowers it, you see blood on his knuckles. Your heart clenches. Weiss. He waves you off. Dust, he says, voice light. Just dust. You know it's not. But you don't press. Not tonight. That evening, as the sun sets red over the horizon, you walk to the riverbank. The same river that once carried bodies now carries reflections. Of new roofs, of smoke curling from stoves, of people daring to stand upright again. Weiss joins you, leaning on a shovel like an old man. You realize, he says, we're building the city we destroyed. You nod. Seems fair. He looks out across the water, eyes distant. Do you think anyone will remember us? Maybe not by name. He smiles faintly. Good. Then we can start over. The wind moves gently through the reeds. The smell of wood smoke and wet soil fills the air. You close your eyes, just breathing. When you open them again, the first house stands nearly complete. Walls solid, roof tight, chimney crooked but proud. Weiss squints at it, then says, "Not bad for ghosts." You laugh softly. Not bad at all. The camp is quiet as night deepens. Lanterns flicker out one by one, leaving only the sound of the river. For the first time since Berlin, you feel something close to peace. Not victory, not redemption, just the fragile quiet that comes after surviving. Dawn comes softly. No explosions, no alarms, just the slow spill of pale sunlight through the mist. The camp stirs awake one breath at a time. A cough here, a kettle hissing there, boots scuffing the dirt. You rise from your cot and stretch. Your back cracks like firewood. For a moment, you forget where you are. The smell of bread baking pulls you back. Real bread, not the shadow of it. Weiss is already up, sitting outside with a mug of thin coffee. His face looks older in the morning light, but his eyes, those restless, stubborn eyes, still hold a spark. He glances at you and grins. We built something. Can you believe that? You nod. Barely. He gestures toward the village. Roofs finished on the first house. Jacob says we start a second row tomorrow. You smile. Tomorrow used to sound impossible. Yeah, he says quietly. Now it sounds like hope. You sit beside him. The steam from the coffee drifts between you like a ghost you've both learned to live with. Across the camp, children chase a ball made of rags. Someone hums while chopping wood. The world is small again, and that's what makes it bearable. After breakfast, you return to the bridge site to deliver lumber. The road there cuts through a valley washed clean by rain. The bridge stands firm now, reinforced, solid. Carts roll across it, wheels creaking, ropes taut. Civilians, soldiers, workers. Everyone crossing from ruin into renewal. A Red Cross nurse waves to you from the far bank. She's the same woman who once checked your pulse in a tent near the river. Her hair's shorter now, streaked with dust and sunlight. Still alive? She calls. Still pretending? You shout back. She laughs. That counts. You watch as she helps an old man down from a wagon. Her hands are sure, her movements kind. You remember what Weiss said weeks ago? Maybe survival is its own kind of mercy. Maybe the act of continuing is enough. When you return to camp, the air is bright and heavy with sawdust. Jacob, the carpenter, hands you a chisel. You carve, he says simply, for the new doorway. You nod. The wood is soft pine, warm under your palms. You press the blade carefully, shaping the curve of an arch, tracing lines that suggest something more permanent than war. It's slow work, honest work, and as you cut, the world narrows to the sound of steel on grain and the rhythm of your breath. Weiss walks by carrying a stack of planks. He pauses. "You're good at that," he says. You shrug. "Better than I was at shooting." He laughs softly, but the laugh turns into a cough. You look up. He waves it off again. "Don't start." You say nothing. Just nod. Later that evening, a small crowd gathers near the well. The first house is complete, chimney smoking, windows patched with scavenged glass. The Polish carpenter raises his cap. "It's not much," he says, "but it's ours." Someone claps. Then another. Soon the whole camp is applauding, quietly at first, then louder, until the sound echoes through the valley like distant thunder. You feel it in your chest, a warmth you'd forgotten how to name. Weiss leans close and murmurs, "Remember the candle woman?" "Yes. She'd like this." "She'd call it stubborn." "Same thing." You both smile. That night you sit by the river again. The sky is open, wide, full of stars. You pull the carved bird from your pocket, the one you started in the labor camp. It's smoother now, wings even, edges polished by your thumb. You set it on the water and watch it drift. Weiss joins you silent. The two of you sit until the moon rises high, turning the water silver again. The same silver that once reflected fire, now reflecting light. He says, "When this is over, really over, I'm going home. If my home's still there." You nod. "And if it isn't?" He looks at the horizon. "Then I'll build one." You smile. "I'll help." The bird catches a current and spins once, twice, before floating downstream. It looks almost alive. Weiss watches it fade. "You think it'll make it?" "Maybe. Depends on the wind." He chuckles. "Then it has a chance." The next morning you wake early. The air is cool, the sky streaked pink. Trucks rumble beyond the hill. New supplies, new people, new beginnings. You pack your tools, sling your coat over your shoulder, and stand for a long time watching the sun climb over the rebuilt roofs. Berlin is far behind you now, but its echo remains, soft, faint, like a story told to someone who finally learned how to listen. Weiss walks up beside you. "You ready?" "For what?" "For whatever's next." You take a deep breath, tasting earth instead of smoke, hearing laughter instead of sirens. You nod. "Yeah, I think I am." Together, you walk toward the new day, the bridge behind you, the world ahead. Two men no longer fighting, no longer fleeing, just moving forward. And for the first time in years, that feels like victory.